In a place covered in white snow all year round, the heavenly demon took slow steps up a high slope. He exhaled a heavy breath accompanied by thick mist. In the ice castle, a lady sat regally on a white throne. The heavenly demon approached and threw a massive dead wolf in front of her. He had finally made it here. Not stopping there, he placed his foot on the giant wolf. Amidst the strong wind, the heavenly demon declared to the witch that their 20-year war would end today, stating he would defeat her and rule this world. The ice witch smirked, looking at him with proud eyes. She rested her hand on the armrest, slowly stood up, and dismissed his words. She called his claims nonsense, noting that for 1,000 years, no one had survived and returned from her ice palace. The ice witch channeled magic into her palm, raising it high arrogantly. She told him that large ice shards were forming along the magical current, and he would be no exception. Hundreds of massive ice blocks were ready for her command. The ice witch shouted, launching all of them at the heavenly demon at once, determined to make him regret coming to her domain. He clenched his fists, looking up at the ice raining down violently. With his agile legs, he easily dodged them. He slid across the thick ice, his eyes showing intense focus. But there were too many for the heavenly demon to dodge forever. In a brief moment, he was almost hit. He realized they were too fast and that the magical force was strong enough to pierce his armor. The heavenly demon looked at the relentless attacks, furrowing his brow, noting the number of ice shards was countless. Despite this, he remained very agile in dodging all the strikes. Snapping out of his thoughts, he jumped to the side and made a decision. He would move faster than the speed of the incoming ice and break through. No matter how great his determination was, the ice kept attacking without end. He thought of a way to counter, realizing he first needed to close the distance, since she was about to use her ultimate move. He had to attack first in that brief window. Seeing him constantly dodging without counterattacking, the ice witch became annoyed. She called him a rat and challenged him to dodge the next strike. She chanted for the frost to grant her the power to destroy her enemy. Seizing the opportunity, the heavenly demon braked sharply to stop in time. He rushed forward with the intent to attack, calling her a witch. The ice witch's magic was almost complete amidst his approach. A second later, both unleashed their ultimate magic. The two massive magical forces collided, creating a terrifying impact. The ice witch saw she had the upper hand and could not help but giggle. On his side, a few ice shards had injured the heavenly demon's face. But he did not give up. He frustratingly withdrew his magic, realizing he had missed the chance to attack. He landed on the ground, quickly taking a stance for the next strike. The heavenly demon gritted his teeth, admitting her casting speed was insane. His annoyance was clear in his eyes. It was, indeed, not an easy fight. The ice witch looked down at him with some curiosity. She asked the heavenly demon one thing before he died. She noted he had crossed dimensions and used his comrades' bodies as stepping stones to get here, and asked what the meaning of this war was. What was the reason he risked his life to challenge her? The heavenly demon glanced at her and gave a broad answer. He stated that the heavenly demon cult must naturally rule all things in the world, as that was the reason for his existence and the cult's. After that, he gritted his teeth, hatred rising in his voice. He said with so many fellow members sacrificed, he could not stop. His decisive words made the ice witch falter slightly, not making her wait long. The heavenly demon charged with all his might. The ice witch knew it would be hard to escape, so she cast her magic. She asked if he really wanted to fight to the bitter end. The heavenly demon charged with a stronger attack, determined to send her to the afterlife this time. She quickly continued to deploy her ice magic with disdain. She told him he was delusional and would never have a chance to win. She launched a block of ice harder than stone, calling it her absolute defense. Seeing this, the heavenly demon became alert, realizing she knew she could not use an attack to block his move. He felt underestimated. He called out his technique, the heavenly demon earth strike. After his move, the rigid ice block gradually cracked. A black dragon from the heavenly demon rushed straight at the ice witch. He told her, It was not an attack she could block. Heavenly Demon soared. After the ice witch was hit, all the surrounding ice shards shattered. She was pressed against the ground, seemingly meeting her end. Before she died, the Heavenly Demon told her that he had united the martial arts world and conquered 4 parallel worlds, and this was the 5th and final world. He praised her fighting but stated that, under this sky, he was the strongest, so she should not hold a grudge. The Ice Witch looked up at the sky with satisfaction. She wondered if this was the end and if she could finally rest, but she refused to accept defeat, saying it was too early for him to declare victory. After that, the Ice Witch cast another ice shard from behind him. He was so surprised he could not help but exclaim. He wondered how she could still refuse to surrender after taking such a hit, and knew he had to escape immediately. The Ice Witch grabbed his hand tightly, declaring it was too late and that this was truly the end. The Heavenly Demon knew he could not escape. An indescribable nervousness surged in his heart as he cursed. The ice shard rushed down, and a piercing pain shot through his brain. In that moment, he wondered if they were dying together. He thought he had to try, as dying first meant losing. He had to at least see the witch die. Despite his last efforts, the final words the Heavenly Demon heard were her saying she had won. Both collapsed in exhaustion. He was furious he could not see the witch die with his own eyes and angry that his conquest stopped here. His consciousness was fading, but was kept alive by the burning fire of his will. The Heavenly Demon was a supreme martial arts master, leading the 4 great guardians, the White Blood Troop, and the Heavenly Bone Squad. He could not let his supreme martial arts be lost because his entire life was dedicated to them. In the dark void, his obsession with martial arts remained, meaning the Heavenly Demon was still alive. He wondered how much time had passed. What woke him was a steady heartbeat. He was curled up. Based on his senses, he guessed it was warm and comfortable. This was a mother's womb. The lost sensation was gradually returning. This process was quite interesting, but it seemed someone else was there besides him. He wondered if they were twins and felt a bit happy, asking himself if he was about to have a sibling. The Heavenly Demon suddenly recalled his days of suffering. In his past life, he had no siblings. He was abandoned by his parents, lived as a wandering beggar, and was captured as a slave for the demonic cult. That was the first step to becoming the Heavenly Demon who ruled the world. Now he would have a family. When he reconquered the world, he could trust them with his martial arts. He thought his sibling was lucky to meet him. He would become a stronger Heavenly Demon and not die alongside the Ice Witch again. He welcomed the start of a new life. After 9 months and 10 days, Nauram was born. He slowly opened his eyes to see what he had been sensing. He was shocked by a bone-chilling cold aura. When he saw the baby next to him, he understood this familiar feeling. It was a baby girl with white hair and an unmistakable magical aura. She was also slowly opening her eyes. He wondered if she was the Ice Witch. What an ironic twist of fate. His face could not hide his joy at being reborn as the witch's sibling. At this moment, both had the same thought, not expecting to meet again. He thought this was a golden opportunity from heaven. In this life, he would take spectacular revenge. Only the 2 doctors were excited, pointing out that the 2 babies were smiling. Urim thought about his past comrades. A dark figure with long hair representing a swordmaster who fought alongside him. The #1 assassin highly skilled in assassination magic. Someone carrying a strong yin aura named Tang Manchian, a poison genius. Another tall figure who could split a mountain with one punch. Sun Gu Wang, a great master of external martial arts. The 4 great guardians. He had united the martial arts world and conquered 4 parallel worlds with them. Now, Uram sucked on a pacifier and sighed in frustration. As a former terror of the world, he was now just an infant facing the biggest challenge of his life. The room door opened. Urin walked to the crib and asked if her little angels were sleeping well. In his mind, Urim flatly refused, begging her not to do it. She smiled kindly. Urim pleaded with her in his head. Eventually, it happened anyway despite his reluctance. She said she would change his diaper. She praised her son for being so strong and not crying because he knew his mother was tired. Urim looked at the ceiling helplessly. Unable to speak, the one who once made the whole world tremble could not even control his own bowel movements now. Urim went to the next crib and called Yuri, saying it was her turn for a diaper change. He turned his head in dismay to look at Yuri. Seeing the scene before him, Urim secretly called her the Ice Witch. That face seemed etched into the corner of his eyes. A Dantian was forming in Urim's body, reincarnating as planned. By now, the Dantian should be complete to accumulate internal energy, and his acupoints should be unblocked. Yet every time he recited his mental martial arts technique at dawn and entered a state of selflessness, this kid would definitely start crying. Their parents would immediately appear, comfort the witch, and pick him up as well. This could not be a coincidence. He was sure she was plotting to sabotage his cultivation. He thought she should just wait. He would never give up. To defeat that brat, he needed not only internal energy but also physical training. He could not be careless for even a moment. A few days later, Urim was still highly focused on cultivating with the intent to be the winner. Yuri looked at these scenes and sighed out of sheer boredom. 4 years passed quickly. Urim temporarily left for a moment, telling the kids to play nicely, and that she was seeing their aunt out and would be right back. The aunt waved goodbye, saying she would come play with them next time. Their chatting voices faded. The aunt said she bought many dolls and told Urim to visit freely, without bringing gifts. Urim agreed. After they went to the gate, Urim finally spoke. He asked how long she planned to pretend not to know him. Hearing this, Yuri was a bit confused and turned to look at him. Urim crossed his arms and clearly declared that, because they had been monitored and disrupted by their parents, he had no chance. But now that their mother had temporarily left, they should settle their unfinished battle from their past life. Yuri sighed, hugged a teddy bear, stood up, and reminded him that he was 4 years old. She told him to wake up and asked why he kept wanting to fight. She faced Urim directly and stated there were 3 things he needed to remember clearly. He lowered his head and blurted out in confusion. Without hesitation, Yuri spoke plainly. First, in their past life, she was the winner. Hearing this, Urim smirked with a triumphant smile, telling her not to joke. He threw a punch and charged, saying, if she wanted to win, she had to strike first. His first punch hit right on the teddy bear Yuri was hugging. From behind the bear, she quickly dodged to the side. Very soon after, Urim took a stance for the next strike. He kicked hard, and she quickly flew up, successfully dodging the attack. Yuri floated in the air, looked down, and continued. Second, unlike him who had to rely on physical strength, she used magic, so her power was not heavily restricted. As soon as she finished speaking, all the teddy bears in the room rushed out to attack Urim. One after another, they piled up and crushed him. Once Urim was restrained, Yuri gently landed. She said the final thing he needed to know. Third, he could cultivate and defeat her later, but he absolutely must not hurt their parents. She asked if he understood. Therefore, a death match between them must not happen. In this life, whether they wanted to or not, they were a family, so they must not break their parents' hearts. Urim looked up at her and asked a painful question. He reminded her that in their past life, they were mortal enemies who wanted to take each other's lives, and asked if she really thought living like this would be okay. Yuri herself did not know what the outcome would be later. Not wanting to say more, she removed all the teddy bears and turned away. She said the past life no longer mattered, and from now on he must call her sister. Urim pushed himself up. After failing, he grimaced and cursed inwardly. That night, when all the children had fallen asleep, Urim lay with his arm over his forehead, thinking endlessly about what happened that morning. He squinted his eyes due to the headache from overthinking. He wondered why the ice witch he knew acted like this. Her mocking face from the past life kept making him curious. He wondered if she would just leave him alone like that. He sighed and turned to look at Yuri to try and understand her better. Uram guessed what she was really thinking. Was it because he was too weak to be worth fighting? Or had she truly accepted him as family? Over there. She lay quietly without saying anything, just like someone asleep. In truth, deep down, Yuri was recalling the past in her previous life. At that time, her face had no emotion at all. She only knew how to destroy everything. Yuri felt dissatisfied remembering that painful image, even when that person was the most important to her. Thinking about it, she sighed helplessly as old memories rushed back. But it was fine. This life was different from the world before. This new life was a gift from the gods, and she would not lose it again. Absolutely never. Not thinking much anymore. Uram pressed 2 fingers into the mattress to continue practicing. He lifted his entire body upside down, even if he did not want to. He had to agree. The witch's words were indeed right. Unlike him who had to rely on physical ability, she used magic and was not restricted much by strength. After a moment, Uram lost his balance and fell backward. He lay flat, sweating profusely, but his heart remained determined. He told her to wait for him. Uram glued his eyes to the mobile above the ceiling with determination. He promised to catch up soon. From now on, he would start his hellish training. To use the heavenly demon divine art consisting of 18 forms, he needed at least 3 cycles of internal energy. 1 cycle was equivalent to 60 years of internal energy. In his past life, just reaching the realm of 1 cycle was enough to rank among the top masters. To accumulate internal energy, he first had to create a dantian. Although it was quite difficult previously to use an unfamiliar body to unblock his meridians, he had completely adapted to this new body now. Uram calmly grasped the flow of blood and chi, then quickly sank into a state of selflessness. He experienced something special. Normally, one had to open the Mingmen acupoint at the end of the spine and connect it with the dantian. But somehow, the Baihui acupoint opened first. He wondered if it was because infants breathe through their heads. The pure body of a young child had accepted this transformation. In his head and lower abdomen, Uram finally managed to form 2 dantians. The next morning, Yurin called him frantically, telling Uram it was time to go to school. Before class, she instructed Yuri to listen to the teacher and have fun today. Yuri acted obediently and agreed. Yurin then turned back and called him a second time, saying he was making the teacher wait. Over there, Uram's red backpack was thrown to the ground. He flatly refused to comply. He told his mother he had nothing left to learn there. She was a bit surprised and exclaimed. Yurin turned to apologize to the teacher and then asked him what was wrong. She apologized to the teacher, saying her son was acting a bit unusually today, even though he went to school normally yesterday. The teacher praised him, saying Uram expressed his opinions very clearly. His mother tried to persuade him, telling him to go to school and make friends. Seeing this, Yuri narrowed her eyes and transmitted a threatening thought to Uram. She reminded him she had given a clear warning and told him to act normal. He squinted his eyes in annoyance. Although dissatisfied, he listened and dared not argue. Early that morning, the bus rolled along under the beautiful sunshine. He looked through the glass window and muttered to himself that he was furious but had to endure it, as the time was not right yet. Suddenly, the girl next to him reached out to strike up a conversation. She said hello. Donggu pointed at himself and stuttered. She asked how old he was and if they could be friends. Uram coldly stated that before asking others, one must introduce oneself, as it was basic politeness. He claimed he was 966 years old and had no interest in children. The girl felt insulted and burst into tears, catching the teacher's attention. The teacher asked the girl why she was crying. Uram had no intention of blending in with this place. He believed he should not waste time on such meaningless things. During the day when he had to socialize, he only maintained minimum consciousness to focus on practicing internal energy. Everything was carefully arranged by Uram. At night, he focused on practicing external martial arts. He alternately recovered his two dantians and pushed his physique to its absolute limit. Time flew by, and another baby was born into this cozy family. Yuri's eyes lit up looking at the baby with indescribable joy. Yurin stroked the baby and told Yuri this was her little sister, asking if she was cute. Yuri nodded vigorously in agreement, saying she was extremely adorable. Everyone was happy, except Uram, who remained vigilant. He noticed he could not feel any aura from her. The mother named the baby Yuna. Yuri leaned in close to say hello to Yuna. Through his intuition, Uram affirmed this little girl was not a reincarnator. Thinking about it now, there was no guarantee that only the two of them were reincarnators. Uram became increasingly on high alert, thinking Yuri must be thinking the same thing. A few minutes later, behind the hospital, he curiously asked why she called him out to such an isolated place. He said if it was a challenge, he always welcomed it. But Yuri directed a cold gaze at Uram without saying anything. She handed over an item and demanded he take it. He was confused and blurted out asking what it was. Looking at the item, Uram became even more puzzled. He asked if it was a ring, saying it was not her style at all and wondering what her plot was. He also mentioned that Yuna did not seem to be a reincarnator. He shared his sudden thought that maybe there were other reincarnators besides them. In the next second, Yuri used teleportation to slip behind Uram. She picked up the ring and explained it was a spatial ring portal that could connect to each other. As long as he knew how to use it, he could teleport instantly. She confirmed his words that Yuna was just a normal child. So, if anything happened, he had to protect the baby. Uram furrowed his brow and reprimanded her, asking why she spoke as if something was definitely going to happen. Yuri did not reply. She only advised him in her capacity as an older sister. Yuri left with a parting instruction to behave properly. Right then, Uram also clearly understood what she meant. He gripped the ring tightly. After that day, the pace of life returned to normal. He thought whatever it was did not matter. Uram diligently trained without rest. Whether there were other reincarnators or not, he just needed to restore his past life strength. Even in class, his continuous cultivation meant he would have nothing to worry about. Reaching a certain point, the palm of Uram's hand glowed, and finally, his power was gradually returning to him. He had reached 3 cycles of internal energy and was already 17 years old. If considering age, this was a terrifying growth rate, but compared to his past life, it was still far behind. In a corner, a group of people was bullying Donggu. They greeted him mockingly, saying it had been a long time. At the same time, Uram thought it was time for some practical combat training. The bully constantly insulted and mocked Donggu. He asked if Donggu thought they would not meet in high school. He noted Donggu's expression suggested he was not happy to see them. The bully demanded Donggu buy them bread like in the old days, claiming he had not eaten breakfast and was starving to death. He promised to pay back the previous debt later and ordered him to go buy it quickly. Donggu struggled to resist but failed. He said he had no money now and begged them to spare him. The bully grabbed a nearby broom and whispered menacingly. He raised the broom directly with the intent to hit Donggu, saying he would have to take a beating then. Just then, a hand appeared out of nowhere and stopped it. The bully angrily turned to see who it was. The other 3 in the group also paid attention. Donggu looked at Uram like looking at the god of his life. Uram introduced himself as his classmate. The bully angrily cursed at him. He demanded Uram let go of him. To Uram, these attacks were as slow as a floating balloon. He effortlessly kicked the bully down. In an instant, the bully face planted onto the floor. Uram let out a long sigh and mockingly said he had let go. The rest of the group laughed. They wondered what that idiot was doing, finding it hilarious and wanting to record it for social media. A girl pressed the record button on her phone. Seeing this, Uram intended to turn and walk away to end the matter peacefully. The 3 kids were scared pale, realizing he was walking towards them. Unfortunately, they had misunderstood Uram's intention. He reached his hand out to Donggu and asked if he was okay. Through Donggu's teary eyes, Uram appeared like an angel descending. Uram told him to stand up, noting he had been beaten quite badly and that trash like them existed everywhere you go. Hearing this, the biggest guy in the group stepped forward to challenge him. He bent down and interrogated Uram with an unpleasant tone, asking if he was done talking. Uram did not hold back and asked in return if he was deaf and needed him to repeat it. As soon as Uram emphasized the word trash, the bully snapped back to reality. He rushed forward aggressively to ambush Uram. Once again, the bully's attack was too slow and could not touch him. He threatened Uram, saying he was dead meat. Uram's eyes inadvertently flashed with a cunning purplish-red glint. He asked if that was all. The bully was scared stiff and dared not utter another word. The sky in the bully's eyes turned upside down as he spun around. He was thrown by Uram gently and painlessly, and so the bully was completely defeated by Uram. Furthermore, Uram placed his foot straight on him to prevent any resistance. The other three watched this scene with pale faces, not daring to do anything. Uram had completely gained the upper hand. He released a sarcastic remark stating this was not even worth calling practice. Just as the guy was about to lunge and escalate things, Yuri entered the classroom. She asked softly, but with enough weight to terrify them. She asked what they were doing, and told them not to say they were fighting in the classroom. The girl turned with a mocking face. She told Yuri to speak properly, asking if she could not see what was happening, and claiming her brother was brutally beating someone. Uram scratched his face helplessly, turning away without offering any defense. The girl smirked and threatened, saying she had recorded everything on her phone. A guy chimed in to mock him, saying if she reported it to the homeroom teacher, this matter would not be easily overlooked. Yuri did not need to say much. A streak of ice lightly grazed the girl's eyes. Speaking volumes. The phone screen instantly shattered, sending them into a panic. The girl wondered why it suddenly broke, as she had bought it less than a month ago. Yuri quietly walked to her seat and demanded they go back to their desks since class was about to start. Uram watched her with a blank stare, saying nothing. The bully marched over, putting on an arrogant face to challenge Uram, telling him they would meet again later. Uram patted Donggu's shoulder and waved goodbye, telling him they should get along from now on. A while later, during break time at an isolated spot in the school, Yuri asked him what he was doing. She noted he had been quiet for a long time and asked if he was itching to show off his precious strength. He raised his hands to defend himself, saying he only intended to scare them. He asked if he was supposed to just stand and watch a classmate get bullied. Yuri did not reply to that. She only advised him. She said this place was different from the world they used to live in, and asked if it was not time for him to adapt. Uram furrowed his brow and firmly affirmed that this world was no different. He stated that if adapting meant turning a blind eye to things like that, then he would rather change the world. Yuri herself did not understand what she really wanted. Meanwhile, in another corner, Donggu's body was trembling. The bully felt terrible, thinking he should have left that bastard to struggle alone. The bully felt insulted and yelled for him to shut up. He looked into the distance with determined eyes, swearing he would not let him get away. A guy smirked and mocked him, asking what he planned to do if he did not let it go. Noting Uram seemed very good at fighting, the bully felt his pride hurt and yelled in defense. He claimed he just was not focused, and that if they fought again, he would crush that guy. The guy then demanded they call their gang members. He said since they saw him fight, they could not leave him alone, and needed more people to ensure he could never stand up again. The bully chuckled in amusement and lightly touched Donggu's hair. He said no one could beat a group jumping them. He addressed Donggu, who was trembling in fear at his threats. He asked if Donggu heard everything. He ordered Donggu to lead Uram to the empty lot after school. He asked if Uram was his friend, and threatened that, if Donggu did not bring him, he was dead meat. A moment later, after school in class 21, someone called Uram, catching his attention. Donggu thanked him for helping earlier. Urim nodded and smiled, saying he could not just stand by. Donggu clenched his fists, finding it hard to speak. He stammered that, as a thank you, he thought maybe he would buy Urim something delicious to eat. Donggu's expressions were so obvious that Urim could not fail to notice. He asked Urim what he thought and suggested going after school if Urim had time. Without hesitation, Urim put his arm around Donggu's shoulder and said it sounded great, adding, he was craving tteokbokki. At this point, Urim whispered into Donggu's ear, asking if those guys still had not learned their lesson. He asked where they needed to go and told him not to tell the class president. Donggu's face darkened with worry as he did not want to drag Urim into this. That afternoon on the rooftop, a large crowd of students stood there. Seeing Urim approach, they became somewhat agitated. Someone pointed out that he was here. Another asked for confirmation. One of them asked Urim if he was the guy who knew how to fight. Urim did not care, scratching his head and looking around. He asked if this was the famous place that sells tteokbokki. The bully smirked in disdain, wondering what the hell he was talking about and calling him crazy. Another guy chimed in, guessing Donggu lied to bring him here. He asked what Urim was going to do, stating there was no tteokbokki shop here. Urim did not back down and cursed them straight to their faces, saying he knew that and calling them trash. The street thugs were ready to fight. They called him crazy and asked if he was really that confident. Urim reached out his hand to welcome them, telling them to stop talking and come at him. He stated he did not have much time and that, if he went home late, his sister would worry. That afternoon, the streetlights reflected the faint dust of the battle. The thugs rushed in one by one, underestimating Urim's abilities. One threw a punch just like any ordinary thug, shouting for him to die. Unfortunately, these amateur moves did not interest Urim at all. The guy was surprised because he did not know why he fell. Another guy immediately stepped up. Urim calmly ducked his head and naturally dodged the amateur attack. At the same time, he clenched his fist and swung an uppercut, knocking the guy unconscious with a single blow. The remaining thugs naturally froze. Not daring to charge, they cursed, asking what the hell was going on and if this was a joke. Urim beckoned with his finger and smirked in contempt. He asked what they were doing and told them to come at him quickly. The whole group was provoked and charged together, shouting to beat him up. Urim gently twisted another guy's arm, knocking him out cold. After dealing with that one, he threw a kick to handle the next. After adjusting his stance and planting his feet firmly, he took out another guy with a single strike, sending him to join the others on the ground. Refusing to lose, a thug charged with all his might. Urim raised his hand to block the attack as easily as catching a falling leaf. He kept his other hand ready for the finishing blow. With just a few swift punches, the guy passed out while still standing. After the leaders, who were considered the strongest, fell, the minor thugs felt a bit scared. Urim looked back at the pile of trash and chuckled. He admitted he might have gone a bit overboard. The three kids could not hide their shock, wondering how this was possible. Seeing them stand frozen, he provoked them, asking what was wrong and telling them to continue. Only then did the remaining guys realize the true gap in skill. Urim laughed heartily, scolding them. He said this was exactly why he hated people like them. They could not achieve anything themselves and only knew how to bully the weak. But when facing someone strong, they tucked their tails and ran like dogs. He told them they were still too green to be mimicking the Dark Moon Gang. While Urim was talking continuously, one guy grabbed an iron pipe. He swung the pipe high with malicious intent. The pipe swung horizontally so fast that the swishing sound could be heard. Urim remained calm. As the pipe almost touched his body, he raised his hand and used just a little force to easily block the small pipe. He coldly glanced back and advised the guy that since he was grown up, he should know swinging that at someone's head could kill them. After speaking, Urim struck 2 pressure points on the guy's body to knock him out. As expected, the guy collapsed on the spot without a single cry. He was so terrified he lost control of his bladder. Finishing the job, Urim looked at the remaining group and stated it seemed they needed a lesson. The whole group was uniformly terrified, breaking out in cold sweat all over their bodies. The next morning, the whole school knew about the incident. Students gossiped, asking if others heard the rumor that the school bullies were taught a lesson somewhere. They could not believe it. One confirmed it was true, which explained why they were completely silent today. They asked where the fight took place. Another shared the best part: dozens of them were beaten by just one person. People found it unbelievable. One student said a friend saw it on the way to the academy, but was too far away to see clearly, confirming that one person defeated all the bullies alone. They thought it was awesome and wondered who it was. Someone asked if it was the class president's younger brother and wondered how it could be him, noting he was always spacing out and quiet. Another mentioned hearing he fought in class yesterday and was a good fighter. Meanwhile, out on the sports field, two figures were sitting. Uram leaned back and casually told Donggu he would not have to worry anymore. If they bothered him again, Donggu should just tell him. Hearing this, Donggu stared in amazement and asked if the rumor was true. Uram played dumb and asked what rumor. Donggu recounted what he heard about Uram defeating all of them alone. Uram looked up at the sky, sighed, and made up an excuse. He asked if Donggu really believed that and claimed he just talked to them, and they understood. Donggu felt helpless because Uram was terrible at lying, noting that story was even harder to believe. Uram turned, smiled kindly, and advised him not to spread nonsense rumors. Donggu nodded in agreement, apologized, and said he should not have dragged Uram into this, blaming himself for being weak and pathetic. Seeing this, Uram quickly patted Donggu's shoulder and comforted him. He asked how Donggu could say that, stating the pathetic ones were the trash who only knew how to bully others. Not him. Donggu clenched his fists. Feeling uneasy, he said he heard those guys were very dangerous and had a gang backing them. Uram seemed to understand Donggu's feelings. Donggu said he did not want Uram to get in trouble because of him. Uram jumped up and firmly reassured him not to worry, saying those guys were nothing. Donggu bowed his head and stammered, thank you." The next sentence touched Uram's heart. Donggu said he had always been alone, and Uram was the first person to stand up and protect him when he was bullied. Uram closed his eyes, turned away, and admitted he was the same. He said this was also his first time having a friend in this life. He asked Donggu to take care of him from now on. After chatting a bit more, Donggu expressed his curiosity. He asked if Uram read a lot of manga. Uram was confused by the strange question. Donggu waved his hands and explained it was nothing, just that Uram's way of speaking was a bit unique. Uram let it slide and changed the subject, asking for his name. Donggu introduced himself, and their beautiful friendship began. Later that day during a family meal, the whole family gathered together, looking very cozy. Seeing Yuna pick out her carrots, Yurin reminded her she had to eat carrots too. Yuna stuck out her tongue and refused, saying carrots tasted awful. Despite this, Yurin still pressured her. Seeing the mother and daughter like this made Yuri chuckle. Yuna remained stubborn, complaining to her mother that carrots only looked pretty, but had no taste. Yurin advised Yuna that, if she wanted to be smart like her sister, and tall like her brother, she could not be a picky eater. Putting that aside, Run asked Yuri and Uram if their studies were going well. Yuri answered first, saying she was the same as always. Yuna popped her head out and praised her sister endlessly. She said her sister was always first in class, and even won an award in America. Both parents nodded approvingly. Run then turned to Uram and asked how his studies were. Uram looked away and gave a vague answer. He said he thought he was maintaining justice for the world, and even made a friend, calling it a completely different achievement compared to ranking first in a small school test. Yuri sighed helplessly, while Urin felt a bit confused. After finishing their meal, the two siblings went their separate ways. They thanked their parents for the meal. Yuri said she was going to her room to study. Uram left, saying he was going to exercise. Before he left, Yurin told him to be careful. While washing dishes, she sighed to her husband, saying she was a bit worried about Uram. He was already 17, and though he had no interest in studying, he also seemed to have no thoughts about his future. Upstairs, despite studying, Yuri heard everything. Run told her not to rush and just wait, as he trusted their children. Everyone had their own pace and direction. At least their son had not caused any trouble. Right. Just as Run finished speaking, trouble arrived. Someone called out to a guy in a red shirt to come over. Sumo asked the students to confirm if it was him. They confirmed in unison that it was indeed him. As soon as he saw them, Uram recognized them and asked what they wanted. He asked if they were the gang backing those kids. Hearing this, Kuro smirked and urged him that, if he knew, he should hurry up and move somewhere else to talk, so as not to be seen by others. Sumo ordered the students to back off, but they complained, asking if they could not watch. Uram agreed to their demand, saying that was fine. A while later, at an isolated mountain not far from the city, Kuro spread his arms and announced there was no one around now. Uram smirked and mocked him, asking if he was sure he would be okay because if he used his full strength, he would not let Kuro say another word. Kuro asked straight out if Uram was a returner. The question struck Uram like lightning, stiffening his body for a moment. Kuro cracked his knuckles arrogantly. Judging by Uram's reaction, he assumed he was right. Kuro unleashed magic. Although a bit startled, Uram managed to dodge the attack. The strong gust of wind from the magic proved Uram's suspicion was correct. He increasingly realized what this power was. Kuro whispered that he was ready for an uneven fight. He suggested they test each other's skills. Birds flew frantically, and countless leaves scattered in the air. Kuro rushed forward and punched straight at Uram. Uram blocked it with his arm, still thinking continuously. A reincarnator. Uram casually threw a punch while continuing to ponder. He wondered if there were others reborn in this world besides him and the witch. Kuro leaned his body and easily dodged. He began to smile contemptuously. Immediately after, Kuro launched a kick aimed straight at Uram's face. Noting he looked distracted, he mocked Uram's weak attacks. Uram leaned his body to dodge. He thought to himself about this guy and how he was channeling energy into his strikes. Kuro channeled energy into his fist and smirked, asking where the arrogance from earlier went. Continuous attacks were launched. Uram simply raised his hand to block, judging the skill level to be unimpressive. Sumo stood outside watching the fight and commented that Uram was more boring than he thought, having expected too much. Kuro triumphed, saying there was no need to watch further and planning to end the match with a decisive punch. Uram calmly noted that Kuro used martial arts and asked exactly who he was. As Kuro threw his punch, he noted Uram was very curious and promised to tell him if he dodged this strike. He swung his fist hard at Uram's face, challenging him to dodge it. A loud explosion echoed. The arrogant Sumo stood with his hands in his pockets, watching as a gust of wind swept past him. Within the thick dust cloud, Kuro gradually appeared. He looked at the result he just created. He admitted he got a bit too excited and asked if Uram was okay. From nowhere, Uram appeared behind Kuro, confirming he was fine. Kuro was startled. He turned around in panic, unable to believe Uram was completely unscathed. Uram remained calm and smiled, demanding Kuro speak and reveal who he really was. Kuro suspiciously questioned how Uram dodged that attack, concluding he was no amateur. He agreed it would be boring to end it so soon. Uram sighed in boredom, asking why Kuro was not answering his question about his identity. Kuro jumped back, frowning. He told Uram if he wanted to know, he had to defeat him. As his fist was about to touch Uram's face, it was suddenly blocked by Sumo. Uram looked tiredly at the weak power of the punch. Uram had already gathered power in his fist, preparing to launch a counterattack. Blocked, Kuro looked confused. He angrily glared and asked what Sumo was doing. Sumo said sternly not to forget their purpose, and that the boss orders came first. Kuro withdrew his fist in dissatisfaction, as Sumo stepped between them. Sumo apologized for the rudeness, claiming they just needed to test Uram. Uram still questioned them, telling them to skip the apology and reveal who they were. Sumo raised an eyebrow. He sighed. He introduced themselves as Hunter Horn, an organization of reincarnators. Uram was shocked hearing Sumo's introduction. His face was full of questions. Hunter Horn, an organization of reincarnators. He asked how they knew he was reincarnated. Sumo explained briefly that it was competition. He continued, saying there were many reincarnators in this world outside their organization. They were powerful and secretly manipulating the world, and Hunter Horn was looking for talented individuals to fight against them. Uram quietly realized that it was not just one or two reincarnators. It was very likely that the others from his past had also reincarnated into this world. Uram dug for more information, asking how many reincarnators there were and how large Hunter Horn was. Sumo shrugged, stating he could not reveal more information to an outsider unless Uram joined Hunter Horn. Uram acted defiant, asking why he should do that and stating he did not submit to those weaker than himself. His words froze Kuro and Sumo. They tried to hold back their laughter. Sumo burst into loud laughter. He suddenly turned serious, noting that wherever you go, there is always someone who does not know their place. Before recruiting him, Sumo threw a fast punch at Uram, saying he needed to teach him a lesson. A powerful punch was thrown, denting a piece of flesh deeply. The punch was strong enough to make the ground shake. The scene shifted to evening. Yuri was walking down the street. Uram's voice echoed. He asked why she always studied so hard, cramming things that did not help in life just to be evaluated on memory and ranked. Yuri endured it in silence. Uram leaned against the wall, smirking in disdain, asking what the point was. Yuri simply sighed, saying that was how this world worked. She then asked what the matter was. Uram got straight to the point, telling her not to be surprised. But there were other reincarnators besides them. Yuri frowned and asked, "So what?" She started to walk away. Uram did not give up, asking what she meant, stating they were hiding in this world. Yuri remained indifferent, saying even if they found out, they should just pretend not to know and live as they are now. Uram persisted, asking why she would say that and calling her a witch. Yuri suddenly shouted, telling him not to call her that. She declared she was just a normal high school girl and asked what witch he was talking about. Her shout drew the attention of passers-by. Uram also stopped and said no more. Yuri lowered her voice, stating she was no longer the ice witch he once knew. She said she was just a high school girl named Na Yuri. She warned that if anyone dared to interfere with her current life, she would not forgive them, including him. Na Uram. She walked away, leaving Uram stunned in place. The scene shifted to the next morning in the classroom. Everyone was laughing and having fun. Uram looked thoughtful, resting his chin on his hand. He wondered if she was satisfied with her current life. Donga's voice cut through his thoughts, calling his name. Uram snapped out of it, asking what was wrong. Dongu happily started a conversation, asking what he was doing, spacing out all the time. He offered one of his earbuds, asking if Uram wanted to listen to music. Uram took it and put it in his ear, asking what kind of music it was. Dongu enthusiastically told him to give it a try, saying it was a band he liked and Uram would probably like it too. Uram dreamily listened to the melody. Suddenly, the melody in the song widened his eyes in surprise. The lyrics sang about being the sky and never forgetting all that was left behind. A vision of hundreds of people appeared on a peak. The figure of the leader gradually emerged through the misty smoke. It was Uram in his past life. He shouted loudly that today everything under this sky would belong to them, declaring himself the heavenly heaven, the absolute peak of heaven. His subordinates behind him wondered why he did this every morning. The song lyrics continued, each line awakening a forgotten part of his memory. The lyrics spoke of being the highest sky, all the dreams they built together, and told him never to forget. The melody ended. Uram took off the earbud and dazedly asked who composed the song. On the screen was a beautiful female idol. The lyrics echoed about achieving dreams together and never forgetting. Urim held the phone as the female idol's voice continued. Donggu happily asked how it was and if the song was good. He explained this was a group named Fairy. Urim muttered the name Fairy, wondering why the face felt so familiar. Donggu explained they were the hottest girl group right now, and the center member, So Yan, was the most popular. Both the lyrics and the music were written by So Yan herself. Urim pondered, realizing So Yan wrote the lyrics herself. Donggu added that So Yan was a Chinese member, so she was extremely popular not only in Korea, but also in China. Urim recalled the lyrics, certain they were identical to the speech he gave before the battle with the Martial Arts Alliance. If so, then So Yan was definitely a member of the heavenly demon cult who was present there. He had confirmed the existence of other reincarnators, and there were quite a few female followers in the cult. In this world, perhaps she became an artist to survive. He wondered why he felt a certain sadness hidden behind that beautiful smile. Suddenly, Urim turned and asked where he had to go to meet this person. Donggu was dumbfounded, asking if Urim liked her that much. He said to meet her in person. Urim had to go to a concert or a fan sign event. Urim excitedly agreed to go. Donggu was stunned, noting how sudden this was while they were still in class. The scene shifted to the Hunter Horn building. A loud noise echoed. Kuro and Sumo were blasted away by a burst of power. That power created a thick smoke screen. Gordon cracked his knuckles angrily, surrounded by an aura of power. He called them useless trash for returning empty-handed. After failing against a newly leveled-up kid, both were beaten to the point they could barely stand. Kuro groaned, asking how they could have known he was much stronger than expected. Gordon yelled, asking if that excuse made any sense. He ordered them to go back there again if they did not want to die. From above, a small hand rested on the railing. A child's voice spoke, telling them that was enough, and that they should understand. For reincarnators like them, age in this life did not matter much. He could have been an extremely formidable figure in his past life. Sumo was surprised by the appearance of Shin, the branch manager. Kuro immediately agreed with him, adding that Urim was absurdly strong. Shin raised his hand, a golden energy wrapping around it. He said he would have to meet him in person to see what kind of person he was. Suddenly, that energy lifted Kuro and Sumo into the air. Shin tightly choked both of them. He asked if it was not true that they were useless. Both were choked tight, unable to breathe. He stated that was why they underestimated their opponent and made things more complicated, despite having no skills themselves. Shin spoke sternly, declaring he would go this time. He could not miss such a rare talent, nor could he turn him into an enemy. Shin deactivated his power, and Kuro and Sumo dropped from above. He instructed that, while he persuaded Urim, they should investigate his surroundings, family, and friends, finding anything that could be used as his weakness. Gordon complied with the order. The scene shifted as night enveloped the city. Yuri returned home after a long day of studying, her mind still pondering Urim's words about other reincarnators. The scene shifted to a barren desert, where a small figure ran out. It was Yuri in her past life. Clutching a bag of items, she quickly ran behind other people to a lit tent. She called out for her sister, announcing her arrival. Inside the tent was a girl with red hair. Hearing Yuri's call, Rina approached and asked if she brought what she asked for. Yuri excitedly confirmed she brought some leftover bread and a little wine. Rina praised her and led Yuri out of the tent. Yuri trailed behind, asking where they were going. Rina gently told her to follow, promising to show her something incredibly amazing. The scene shifted to a desolate desert area. Only a few mice were active at night. A centipede crawled on the ground. A mouse dashed by, and suddenly a hand swiftly grabbed it. A bizarre old man made strange sounds, saying he understood and promising to make the mouse comfortable right away. From the old man's hand, a fire ignited, and he brought the flame close to the struggling mouse. Rena's voice called out to the old man from afar. The old man stopped. Rina approached with her past life self, Suya, following behind. The old man rejoiced, asking if Rina had arrived. Rina's face brightened in the night, apologizing for keeping him waiting. The nomadic old man took the bread and devoured it. Sitting opposite him, Rina sympathetically noted, he must have been starving, adding that adults rarely gave them much food lately. Suya hid shyly behind Rina. The old man kept gnawing on the bread without looking up, saying it was fine. Suya then spoke up, asking the old man why he lived alone out here and what happened when there was no food. Rina shushed her. The old man asked who the child was. Rina quickly explained that this was Suya, her younger sister she had mentioned before. After eating, the old man laughed weirdly. He complimented Suya's name and his eyes sparked with fire as a flame appeared in his palm. He said he would tell her the reason he lived alone. At that time, Suya was mesmerized by the beauty of the fire. In this life, Yuri thought to herself. If she had not learned magic then, would her life have changed? Yuri snapped out of her flashback and returned to reality with a serious face. In front of her house, Yuri saw Shin standing right at the door. She asked what he was doing in front of someone else's house. Shin arrogantly lifted his head, stating he clearly heard it was a boy and asking if she was his older sister. Yuri's eyes lit up. She suspected she sensed a questionable energy from that small child. She gathered power in her hands and cast a magic circle, unleashing a terrifying aura. She affirmed she was his sister. A cat strolling by suddenly stopped as a deep hole appeared in the middle of the street. In an instant, the hole vanished. Yuri had teleported both of them into a barrier. Shin was surprised by the barrier. Noting it was not easy to cast one of this scale, he sighed, calling his subordinates useless fools for saying only civilians were around Uram. Yuri lost all patience and demanded to know who he was and how he dared to loiter in front of their house. Shin tried to calm her down, telling her not to be so defensive. He said, since she also came to this world, she should join them. Yuri's eyebrows furrowed tightly, stating she was the one asking the questions. She demanded to know who they were and why they were hunting them. Shin calmly mentioned it seemed her brother had not told her anything. He decided it was convenient to meet like this, planning to clear up the misunderstanding with her brother and chat later. Yuri angrily cut him off, telling him to shut up and answer her question. She warned him his life depended on his answer. Shin sighed, complaining that reincarnators were always so rude and only sat down to talk when they realized the difference in class. As he spoke, a glowing aura surrounded him. Shin smirked, and the power of both engulfed the barrier. This time Yuri did not ask again. She took his action as an answer and showed no mercy. She told him to see how long he could maintain that arrogant attitude. Both gathered energy and quickly engaged in combat. The scene shifted back to Yuri's memories. On the barren land, the small figures of the three appeared. Floating ice crystals hovered in the air from Suya's hands. She cheered joyfully, telling her sister and the old man to look, as she had succeeded too. The old man coughed a few times and praised them, saying both were very talented and exceptional. On Rena's hand, a small flame had appeared. The old man continued his praise, noting Rena had spirit fire and Suya had spirit ice. The old man smiled weirdly, impressed that both could communicate with spirit so easily. Suya excitedly asked if they could become mages now. Rena smiled brightly at her, assuring her that, if they worked hard together, she believed they could do it. Rena happily said that if they became royal mages, they would never have to go hungry again. Hearing this, Suya giggled, promising to practice every day. Suya shrank her small body, her eyes sparkling, and asked if she became a famous mage, would their mother and father come back to find them? Rena, still practicing magic, asked if Suya still remembered them. Suya immediately replied that of course she did, as they were family. Rena muttered quietly about them being a strange kind of family. Suya did not hear her and asked what she said. Rena dismissed it, telling her to focus on practicing magic. Both fell silent. The scene shifted back to reality. Shin cast a crescent-shaped light attack, calling on the servants of light to answer him. A barrage of glowing arrows was fired. The arrows rushed rapidly toward Yuri, causing a massive explosion. Behind the smoke screen, ice blocks protruded. Yuri emerged without a single scratch and mockingly asked if that was all. Shin continued his attack, claiming this was just the beginning. He swung his arm, and a sharp blade of light swept forward. Yuri remained calm, calling upon the ice spirits to grant her their power. Yuri's power cleanly sliced Shin's blade of light in two. Shin panicked, witnessing her strength. Her face was deadpan as she questioned his talk about class differences, asking if he was proud of such a weak attack. Shin remained arrogant, claiming it was rare to meet a mage of her caliber, so he was just going easy on her. His eyes turned blood red as he declared he would finish her right here. The power of light enveloped Shin's body, transforming him into a giant beast of light hovering in the air. From above, he glared down with red eyes, offering to lead her to her death. Down below, Yuri simply waited in silence. Suddenly, her eyes narrowed, and she provocatively told him to try. Countless ice arrows were launched, clashing with the light power. Yuri's power instantly overwhelmed his, freezing the streaks of light. Furious, Shin yelled that those petty tricks would not work on him anymore. He raised his fist, packed with magical energy. Wrapped in massive power, Shin plummeted directly toward Yuri's position. His fist was right above her head. Yuri coldly cast her magic, ordering the blizzard to swallow everything. A giant magic circle appeared above Yuri's head. Outside the barrier, snow suddenly began to fall. A child reached out to catch a snowflake. Marveling at the snow, Yurin gently replied that winter was still far away. Yuna protested, insisting it was clearly snow falling from the sky. Snowflakes fell densely. Yuna excitedly pointed out to her mother that it was snowing in their neighborhood. Inside the barrier, snowflakes also began to fall. Yuri let out a long breath. Shin's arm was completely frozen. Not just his arm, but his entire body and light power were swallowed by the ice. Yuri walked slowly to Shin, looking up at him in silence, before floating into the air. She landed on an ice slab right in front of Shin. Agonized, Shin asked exactly who she was and how she could possess such power. As he spoke, his arms suddenly snapped off. Shin screamed in terror as his severed, frozen arm rolled on the ground. Yuri coldly reminded him she asked first. Shin grimaced in pain, unable to move his body. She gave him one last chance, her face stern and eyes fierce, demanding he tell her everything he knew. Darkness enveloped the space as a shooting star streaked by. It grew larger, and then thousands of other stars appeared. They plummeted toward Earth, died, and regressed. They were reincarnated right here on Earth. Each of them, once rulers in their past lives, died for various reasons, but for some reason, they were resurrected in a new world, in a new environment, under a new order, after hiding their true identities. They continued to exist. However, powers from their past lives gradually surfaced everywhere, and certain people recognized their presence. The rulers of this world officially denied their existence, but secretly hunted them down. As a result, discovered reincarnators clashed with them. Though possessing weak bodies and unable to use magic or martial arts, the rulers had organizations, systems, and highly dangerous weapons. To fight back, the reincarnators began to ally with each other. Combining magic and martial arts, they became extremely powerful. Reincarnators like them formed organizations for self-defense. During this process, a few exceptional individuals emerged. They began taking action to dominate this world and consolidate their own power, hunting down hidden reincarnators. However, due to past life conflicts, building forces was not easy. Most small groups disbanded. Shin's frozen body lay on the ground. As time passed, every country now had powerful reincarnator organizations. Shin, having lost all his limbs, explained that these groups secretly held power, manipulating the world's rulers while maintaining complex relationships. Yuri asked how many people knew about the existence of reincarnators. Shin breathed weakly, saying very few knew. If exposed, chaos would erupt. So even the ruling class kept it secret. He said he could only tell her that much, as reincarnator organizations operated secretly. So, he did not know all the inside details. Yuri cut him off, saying that was enough. She gathered a small amount of power in her hand, promising to give him a painless death as a reward for the information. Shin closed his eyes. Accepting his death, the scene shifted to the neighborhood where snow was falling heavily. Yurin expressed her amazement. Noting, they said it was only snowing in their area. She spoke on the phone, mentioning she was on her way back from the market. Suddenly, snow fell heavily from the sky. Yuna was outside cheerfully building a snowman. She hummed a song about white snowflakes falling, washing away the bitter cold of the lonely night, and singing a song of winter love. Suddenly, a portal opened, and Yuri stepped out from the barrier. She panicked when she saw Yuna right in front of her. Yuna's eyes sparkled at the magical sight. She rushed into Yuri's arms, calling her sister. Yuna looked up with sparkling, mischievous eyes, asking if her sister was really a fairy. Yuri sweated nervously and smiled awkwardly, confirming she was a fairy. She bent down and made a pinky promise with Yuna, saying her being a fairy was a secret between the two of them, and she absolutely must not tell anyone. Yuna firmly promised. The scene shifted to the next day. Uram yelled, asking why there were so many people. Donggu and Uram were at the fairy concert. Donggu grumbled, reminding Uram he had told him so, and asking why he did not listen. Uram was overwhelmed by the massive scale. Donggu suggested walking around and then heading back, telling Uram to wait there while he went to the restroom. Uram casually agreed. High above on the roof of a building, the familiar figures of the three appeared. Gordon asked if it was him. A voice confirmed it was exactly him, and that he was with a friend. Gordon was satisfied. Ordering them to begin, Sumo and Kuro acknowledged the order. Inside the backstage of the concert, staff were running everywhere. In Fairy's waiting room, the manager clapped enthusiastically, telling them it would be fine and not to be nervous because of the large crowd. He encouraged them to sing like always and warm up their voices. He suddenly looked around and asked where So-yeon was. Another member replied, she probably went out for some fresh air and would be back before the performance. Up in the stands, the female idol looked down at the stage, exhaling sharply. She felt an energy somewhere nearby. Scanning the distance, she wondered what was going on and why there were people over there. Suddenly, those figures vanished. She pondered for a moment, recognized the movement, and also instantly disappeared. Down below, Uram was still waiting for Donggu to return. He wondered why Donggu was taking so long, joking to himself that the idiot must be severely constipated. Meanwhile, Donggu had been knocked out by Gordon, Sumo, and Kuro, and dragged away. They placed Donggu in a hidden spot high up. Gordon ordered them to just wait for the branch manager. Suddenly, the female idol appeared, calling out to Gordon. Gordon snapped his head around. The idol smiled brightly, stating the high schooler they kidnapped was her fan and it would be best if they released him, and got lost. Gordon angrily asked who she thought she was, guessing she was also a reincarnator. He said it was perfect. The boss would be thrilled if they captured her too. The PA system announced the concert hall was open and asked attendees to prepare their IDs and tickets. Uram stood quietly listening to the announcement. He was annoyed, wondering if Donggu was deaf or constipated. Suddenly, Uram felt a surge of power. He tilted his head toward the adjacent building, recognizing the feeling of two opposing forces clashing. He wondered if a duel was happening nearby. He debated whether to get involved, thinking if he caused trouble again, the witch would definitely go crazy. He turned to leave but hesitated again. Ultimately, Uram decided to dash to the adjacent building at a speed so fast no one noticed. On the rooftop, Sumo, Kuro, and Gordon were already defeated, lying scattered on the ground. Uram descended from above, Startled to see Donggu unconscious, he shouted Donggu's name and landed right next to him. He gently checked the pulse on Donggu's neck and was relieved he was only unconscious. Urim interrogated the female idol, asking if she did this to Donggu. She replied it should be obvious, stating she was the one who saved him from the street thugs. The idol smiled, staring intently at Urim. Thinking about it, the kid seemed to be the gem Donggu had bragged about. Urim also thought to himself that this girl was truly an absolute beauty. Urim confidently asked if she was a reincarnator from the heavenly demon cult. He demanded she reveal her identity if so. Her face darkened. Tired of dealing with them, a massive aura was unleashed. She stated since he was a friend of her fan, she would give him one last chance, take his friend and leave now, and she would spare his life. She gathered her power, energy surging around her body. Urim was intrigued and arrogant, noting this was exactly the style of his heavenly demon cult. He warned her he would not hold back just because she was a woman. She got serious, replying that, as a woman, one never knows. Urim gathered momentum and charged quickly. She also took a defensive stance. The two terrifying forces collided, and Urim's attack was blocked. Both paused for a beat. Suddenly, the idol threw a punch, claiming she found an opening. Astonished, Urim immediately defended. The powerful punch sent him flying backward, taking the full brunt of the hit. Urim slammed hard into the wall. The reincarnator scoffed, asking if he was acting so arrogant when he was only at this level. Urim stood up after the terrifying punch, smiling brightly. He admitted she was stronger than he thought, and decided he had to get serious. The idol smiled, looking excited. She said it was great to finally have a proper warm-up after so long. Urim was equally thrilled, laughing and saying it had been a long time since he felt this excited. Both looked at each other with enthusiasm. Urim dashed rapidly toward her, gathering momentum for a punch. He declared he would use his true power to see how much she could withstand. A powerful punch was thrown directly at the idol, followed by a relentless barrage of strikes from Urim. She blocked the attacks, grunting and noting he hit hard enough to shake someone using protective aura. She stepped back and launched a powerful kick aimed straight at Urim's head. He dodged, calling her desperate. Urim scoffed, asking if she was out of breath. He prepared to throw another punch. Just as his hand was about to reach her face, the idol suddenly smiled. Urim instantly realized it was a trap. She ducked to dodge his punch while simultaneously gathering power for a counterattack. With mischievous eyes, she declared she saw his opening. Immediately, a direct punch hit Urim's stomach before he could block. The force of the punch caved his stomach in, sending him flying far away. Urim was knocked off the building. He lay sprawled on the ground, letting out a breath. He realized something, muttering about the martial arts technique she used. After knocking him away, her power had not diminished at all. Urim held his stomach and stood up. Recognizing the supreme external martial art, the diamond body divine art. Only one person could use that skill. From the other side of the building, the idol praised his strength but said it was still not enough. Urim recalled the master of external martial arts, the one who created this technique, the fourth guardian, Sun Gu Wang. Now Sun Gu Wang had reincarnated into the body of a beautiful female idol named Soyeon. He continued to provoke Urim, asking if they should end this game. Urim remembered that, despite having a mortal body, that man had reached the pinnacle of external martial arts purely through grueling training. He remembered the foolish martial artist who waited 400 days in one spot with the single thought of fighting him. It was none other than Sun Gu Wang. The duel with Sun Gu Wang, the one who dared to challenge him, went on endlessly. Their death match seemed like it would never end unless one fell. It was a bloody battle risking their lives, with relentless exchanges of blows until Urim landed the final strike that pushed past the threshold of death. When Urim narrowly defeated this seemingly invincible god of combat, Sun Gu Wang became his ultimate guardian. Urim stood there staring. In battle, Sun Gu Wang was like a demon, but when he smiled, He was ridiculously innocent. He was always a solid pillar of support for Uram. But right now, Uram was extremely bewildered. He asked if she was really Sun Guwang, and why her face looked like that. He asked what happened to him. Sun Guwang looked clueless, surprised that Uram knew his identity. He said he had planned to let Uram go peacefully, but now it would not be that easy. Furious, Uram yelled that he had really crossed the line this time. He decided he truly had to teach him a lesson. With sharp, cold eyes, Uram unleashed the heavenly demon divine art, making Sun Guwang freeze in his tracks. Sun Guwang recognized the technique, wondering if it could be him. Uram remained highly focused, preparing the first form. The dragon-breaking fist was instantly launched, dyeing the space in red light. Sun Guwang could only stand and watch Uram's attack. His eyes suddenly sparkled, certain this was the technique of that person. He unconsciously smirked as if recalling something. Sun Guwang suddenly beamed, saying Uram reminded him of the past. After speaking, he angrily shouted and launched a counterattack. However, Uram's terrifying power left Sun Guwang unable to resist. The dragon-breaking fist crashed down with immense force, severely injuring Sun Guwang. Suddenly, Uram quickly withdrew his attack and stepped back. Both stopped on the shattered ground. Uram dropped to his knees, letting out a long breath. He wiped the blood from his face, realizing it was still too early to use the heavenly demon divine art. Suddenly, Uram widened his eyes, staring straight ahead. Sun Guwang unexpectedly bowed his head low to the ground, formally greeting Uram. With a serious voice, he announced himself as Sun Guwang, paying his respects to the master. Uram stood with a majestic demeanor and ordered him to raise his head. Sun Guwang slowly looked up with a gentle smile. He laughed loudly, saying it had been a long time. "Master," Uram shouted, asking why he was laughing when he did not even realize who he was fighting. Sun Guwang looked up with sparkling eyes, asking how he could not recognize him. He said he missed him a lot, adding that he should call him cult leader. Right. The atmosphere gradually calmed down. Uram gently asked what made him turn out like this. Sun Guwang replied, "It was nothing. Just that he reincarnated into a woman's body and grew up to be a peerless beauty. Since it turned out that way, he decided to reveal himself to find the scattered followers of the heavenly demon cult. Thanks to that, former enemies of the cult from their past lives frequently sought him out." Uram scolded him, calling him an idiot. Sun Guwang retorted, saying Uram should praise him. He pointed out that Uram found him too, and that John Howe had also come looking for him. John Howe was the captain of the heavenly demon cult's elite guard. Hearing this, Uram excitedly asked what he meant and where John Howe was now. Sun Guwang honestly replied he did not know where he was. Since their meeting in China, he had not seen him again, but John Howe asked him to pass on a letter if he ever met the cult leader. Uram reacted, noting that this guy had adapted a bit too well to his new body. The contents of the letter carried thoughtful sentiments. "Cult leader, I hope you are well." Sun Guwang looked foolish as he explained that, if he just passed the message verbally, he would definitely forget. So, he left this letter. Uram glanced at it and muttered that he underestimated Sun Guwang too much. Hearing the compliment, Sun Guwang smiled brightly. Uram continued, saying it was, indeed, John Howe, whose judgment of people was very accurate. The letter discussed John Howe's current situation and did not forget to mention Hunter Horn. Uram thought to himself that indeed, the reincarnators had formed an organization. He looked around and pondered that if it was Hunter Horn, he knew them. Did he mean there were many people like that in the world? If so, just as the witch worried, the people around him would continue to be in danger. What should he do from now on? Sun Guwang suddenly spoke up, saying he had something he really wanted to ask the cult leader. He assumed the cult leader had definitely dealt with the witch when the heavenly demon cult was about to unite the world right before their eyes. Being killed by her made him unable to rest in peace due to deep resentment. He asked if their heavenly demon cult had definitely defeated the witch and ruled the world. Urim scratched his face and suddenly noticed his ring was glowing. He realized the ring created by the witch was glowing. The blood ring sensed the opponent's danger and alerted the wearer. When activated, it could instantly teleport to their location. Urim wondered if something had happened to the witch. Sun Guang called out to the cult leader. Urim remained deep in thought, wondering if Hunter Horn had attacked the witch too. Even so, how could she be easily defeated unless they took their family hostage? Urim quickly stood up and told Sun Guang that they would talk later, because he was busy and had to leave immediately. He also instructed him to take care of Donggu. After finishing his sentence, Urim instantly vanished, leaving Sun Guang dropping his jaw. He thought it was a teleportation technique and praised the cult leader for even mastering Taoist magic. At the same time, the atmosphere at her location was highly dramatic. Yuri was fighting a monstrous, unidentified creature amidst its threats telling the witch to die. The space outside the building was eerily quiet. Urim was quickly teleported inside the house. He looked around in confusion and asked if he had arrived. In front of him was a black hole. He wondered if this was the entrance to the witch's place. Urim slowly reached out to touch the black hole. Suddenly, a strong suction force pulled him in. The Grim Reaper gripped his weapon tightly and launched continuous attacks. Urim watched in astonishment, asking what that was and if it was the Grim Reaper. Yuri was also there, calmly fighting the Grim Reaper. The Grim Reaper's face was terrifying. Urim remained confused as to why he was here and why he appeared so suddenly. His long, sharp axe radiated immense magical power, from the tip of the blade to his entire body. Yuri was surrounded by his demonic aura. Remaining calm, Yuri told him he was being audacious. She quickly deployed her defenses. Blocks of ice rushed out to block the damage from the Grim Reaper's axe. But it seemed unfeasible. Yuri gritted her teeth, realizing he was stronger than she thought. The battle became more intense as both were equally matched. He swung a punch while threatening to finish off the witch. The punch sent Yuri flying far away like a gust of wind, and the Grim Reaper's strength severely injured her. Urim, witnessing everything from the outside, panicked and yelled for the witch. Yuri, having taken a heavy hit, fell to her knees. Urim could no longer stand by and watch. He immediately gathered momentum to attack. Urim unleashed the heavenly demon divine art from behind the Grim Reaper. His entire body erupted with terrifying energy in the first form. He continued to gather momentum for another attack. The heaven-shattering star fist. The attack from behind left the Reaper unable to react. Seeing this, Yuri expressed her annoyance, asking Urim what he was doing and why he was meddling. Hearing this, he got angry and said he just saved her life, yet she was asking why he interfered. He then demanded to know why that Grim Reaper was here. The Grim Reaper was the guardian of the Ice Palace, where the witch slept in her past life. Half of the heavenly demon cult members died at his hands before even stepping foot into the Ice Palace. Yuri softly explained that she had made a contract with the Grim Reaper. Urim was shocked. She calmly stated that she summoned him to protect their house. He yelled, asking if she was crazy to summon such a monster just to protect a house. Yuri pointed out that it was all his fault. Urim was confused and asked how it was his fault. She continued, explaining that a reincarnator came all the way to their house to capture him. And luckily, she handled him. She blamed him for causing trouble everywhere. Since they knew their address, they needed a guardian to protect the family. The Grim Reaper was still there. He yelled at the witch, asking what she was doing and if she dared to ignore him. But Yuri was busy scolding Urim, saying if he was stupid, he should at least live quietly. Urim got furious, asking who she called stupid. She retorted, asking if he thought he was not stupid. After witnessing what just happened, the Grim Reaper still tried to get their attention, but Urim was too busy arguing, asking her what about her, who recklessly summoned that terrible thing, and asking if she forgot he just saved her. Ignored to the point of having to shout, the Grim Reaper cursed and threatened to kill them all. Urim looked up in confusion, asking why he was so angry. Yuri replied that she had no idea. He threatened the arrogant brats who dared to look down on him, saying he would make them pay with their lives. She calmly suggested they should deal with him first. Urim agreed, telling her to go ahead. Yuri instructed him to stay out of it, saying he was only hindering her from completing the ritual. Urim angrily replied, asking if she forgot she was just taken down with a single blow. Suddenly, his body started reacting to something. Urim thought to himself that, when he gathered internal energy, his body reacted, wondering if this was the aftermath of his previous fight. He knew that guy was not an easy opponent to let his guard down against, and even if he was exhausted, he had to defeat him. Both Yuri and Urim were trying their best to destroy the Grim Reaper. She silently chanted, calling upon the Frost Guardians to grant her the power to pierce her enemy. Urim realized the witch was in that stance, so she must be preparing a very powerful spell. He decided to block all of his attacks while the spell was being cast. The Grim Reaper immediately attacked, declaring he would kill Urim first. Urim countered with the heavenly demon divine art. He used the fourth form and then continued with the heavenly dragon descent. The battle grew increasingly fierce between the two opposing forces. Completely exhausted, Urim thought to himself, urging the witch to finish him off. Yuri finally unleashed her ice sword technique. Urim's defense made it easier for her to attack. Yuri confidently stated she would end everything with the final blow. She landed gracefully and calmly announced it was done. Yuri's long, slender legs walked more lightly. She told Urim that everything was over, and they should talk about what happened earlier. She asked what he was doing, reiterating that everything was over. Yuri simply touched Urim's body lightly, but it made him collapse to the ground. She watched intently, surprised and not yet understanding the situation. Urim lay face down on the ground with blood spilling from his mouth. Yuri guessed if this was key deviation. She noted he was still as reckless as before. No matter what she said, his belligerent nature never changed. She feared their family might face a great disaster one day. Because of this guy, Yuri muttered that since it had come to this, it might be better for their family if he died right here, asking if he agreed. In the demon realm, there was an entity on par with the 52 rulers there, and that was the Grim Reaper. He was formerly known as the god of death, and was suddenly summoned by an ice witch. Yuri frowned, remarking that he only ranked 53rd in the demon realm, and complaining that she went through all the trouble of summoning him, just to get someone with such a pitiful rank. The Grim Reaper began to get angry, calling her insolent and a foolish mortal, a trivial creature that could not even live 100 years, daring to disrespect him. Yuri coldly told him he was noisy, and ordered him to perform the ritual. If he lost, he would become the slave of the winner. The contract would remain in effect until one of them was destroyed. After she finished speaking, the Grim Reaper's scythe was raised high. He shouted, calling her an arrogant mortal and vowing to turn her into a slave and make her taste all kinds of pain. And so the duel with the witch began. Yuri leisurely sat on the Grim Reaper's back as he admitted defeat, utterly crushed. He was turned into a slave. His task was to guard her ice palace. Day after day, repelling intruders from other worlds and dealing with the Empire's punitive forces made his life gradually become tedious. The Grim Reaper easily defeated them. He found it incredibly boring because they were too weak, and the witch did not even bother to talk to him. Bored, he suggested they have a fight. Yuri just coldly rested her chin on her hand, glanced over, and lowered her voice, telling him to get lost because she was busy. The Grim Reaper froze every time he spoke. He only received her icy glare and cold words. Despite this, he thought he just needed to be a little more patient. Yuri's eyes turned stern as she raised her voice, warning him that if he did it again, she would turn him into something worse than a rabid guard dog. He thought that no matter how powerful she was, the witch was still a mortal creature. Human life was as short as a blink of an eye. He believed he only needed to endure a little longer, and the contract would definitely end. 1,000 years later, the Grim Reaper was still fighting, He was still actively working as a slave. The witch was still not dead. He found it strange, thinking humans were supposed to be fragile. The two of them had surpassed mortal limits. His life seemed to stretch on endlessly, just as he resigned himself to his fate. The cult leader appeared. The heavenly demon cult leader had conquered the entire empire, bearing the title of Heavenly Demon. He led an army to the Ice Witch. The reason was as clear as day: there could not be two suns under one sky. The witch was an anomalous existence on par with him. Although the witch only lived quietly, letting endless time pass in the ice without causing trouble for anyone. The problem was that she was too powerful. That power angered him, and that alone was enough for the heavenly demon to attack the ice palace. The Grim Reaper fought fiercely to protect her, but was defeated and banished back to the demon realm. After that, he no longer knew what the witch's fate was. Back in the demon realm, he never forgot the humiliation of being made a slave by a human. He trained bitterly so he would never lose to a human again. He vowed there would be no second time losing to a human. Giant swords impaled the Grim Reaper's head directly, but in the end, he lost again. This time it was the reincarnated witch. He lost to the same human twice. He claimed the contract was invalid because someone interfered with the ritual. Yuri coldly told him to shut up. The Grim Reaper turned into a timid little rabbit and respectfully agreed. Yuri was currently focused on transferring power into a human. The Reaper found it surprising that the heavenly demon also reincarnated and even became the witch's twin brother. He noted he was absorbing magical power and was still as belligerent as ever. The Grim Reaper fearfully imagined Yuri's glaring eyes, recalling her telling him to shut up and asking if she needed to teach him a lesson again. He agreed she was right and dared not say another word, simply observing her. Yuri's face was extremely focused. He realized the witch was using cold ice to suppress the heavenly demon's demonic energy. This prevented damage to his new magic core. But, of course, he needed absolute rest until he recovered. The Grim Reaper started flying up and looking down, wondering if the Ice Witch was actually saving the heavenly demon. Yuri's fingers intertwined as she announced it was done, telling him to stop groaning and get up, calling him an idiot. In the room, there were only soft groans. Uram's face contorted in pain as he cried out. Yuri's voice deepened, telling him to be quiet. Uram's expression grew tense as he asked if Hunter Horn had really tracked them all the way to their house. Yuri closed her eyes tightly and nodded, saying it was his fault. She just wanted to live in peace and wondered why people would not leave her alone. Her eyes welled up with tears as she softly asked why no one would leave her alone. Sitting next to her, Uram did not know what to say in this situation. Suddenly, Yuri stood up and declared she had made a decision. Uram was surprised and asked what it was. His face was attentive. She stated that, if no one would leave her alone, she would not sit still either. She would strike first. Uram thought to himself that she finally wanted to take action. He looked at Yuri standing before him, wondering what to do and how to do it. Her tone was confident as she noted it was rare to see him use his brain. She said it was good, and she would tell him the plan. From now on, he was her subordinate. The Grim Reaper was subordinate number 1, and he was subordinate number 2. Uram's face began to contort. He asked if she was crazy and who she thought she was talking to. Suddenly, Yuri's eyes turned sharp as she prepared to use magic. Her fingers continuously poked his body, making him cry out in pain. Yuri calmly continued, saying he talked too much and they would temporarily consider it a partnership. Uram's body went limp on the chair as he vowed to take revenge on her one day. Calling her a witch, Yuri corrected him, saying she was not a witch but his older sister, asking how many more times she had to remind him. The Grim Reaper laughed inwardly, understanding the situation. He realized that both the witch and the heavenly demon had changed. The eternal Ice Witch and the fanatic heavenly demon of the past had vanished without a trace. Yuri crossed her arms and coldly stated that first, they needed information about Hunter Horn. Finding a high-ranking person who just betrayed them would be perfect. Uram's voice trembled as he replied, asking if she thought someone like that was just readily available for her to use, calling her an idiot. Right at that moment, in front of a rather nice-looking house, a luxurious black car suddenly stopped at the gate. A woman's feet slowly stepped out of the car. Sun Guwang's face was extremely excited. She smiled and waved, calling out to the cult leader, then correcting herself to Mr. Uram, wondering who he was with. Suddenly, she stopped and came face to face with Yuri. Sun Guwang tilted her head and politely asked if she was the homeowner. She said she was looking for Uram and asked if she could help call him. Yuri thought to herself that his friend must be as stupid as he is. She told her he would be back soon, and to either wait inside or leave. Sun Guwang cheerfully and leisurely walked in behind her, thanking her. The Grim Reaper flying above sensed an aura different from the witches. He could detect enemy auras more keenly than any creature in the demon realm. The Grim Reaper materialized and whispered to Yuri that the woman seemed to be a reincarnator too. Her sharp eyes turned around in surprise. Sun Guwang also stopped at this moment, looking at Yuri with some confusion. A powerful aura surrounded Yuri's body. She demanded to know her true identity. Sun Guwang widened her eyes, stating this aura clearly belonged to the Ice Witch. She asked if Yuri was hunting down the great heavenly demon. A radiant golden light began to appear all over Sun Guwang's body. Her face darkened as she addressed the Ice Witch, saying she never expected them to meet in this situation. She declared she finally had the chance to settle their grudge from their past life. A blue magical aura began to emanate from Yuri's body. She wondered what Na Uram had been doing outside to constantly attract these kinds of people. Her eyes grew sharp, as she called it annoying, and said she would end this quickly. Suddenly, Sun Guwang was surprised because the surrounding scenery had changed. She realized this space was a barrier and called it perfect, meaning she could fight freely without worrying about being seen. Sun Guwang's body suddenly launched an attack at an extremely fast speed. She clenched her fists and threw a punch, vowing to finish the witch off immediately. Suddenly, a massive scythe appeared and blocked her path. She stopped, her body halting right in front of the blade. She began to grit her teeth in anger. Using immense strength, the Grim Reaper above used the scythe to block Sun Guwang's body. Her arm was also wrapped in a golden aura. Sun Guwang angrily shouted at the bastard, asking how he dared to interfere in her sacred duel. Her foot suddenly changed direction, and with strong internal energy, she knocked the scythe away. She warned him not to interfere. Ice spikes were aiming at Sun Guwang. She noted Yuri not only blocked the attack of a death envoy, but also counterattacked immediately, acknowledging she was no amateur. Sun Guwang declared she could not let her live. Sun Guwang's face was full of confidence as she told her to try. Yuri's cold voice continued, stating she would do it whether she begged or not. The ice spikes began to rush frantically downward. Suddenly, Yuna appeared below and shouted for her sister to stop fighting. Yuri panicked and widened her eyes, asking Yuna why she was there. The little girl suddenly ran towards Sun Guwang, just as the ice arrows were darting down. Sun Guwang turned around in shock, questioning who the child was. Before Yuri's eyes was a massive explosion. She screamed Yuna's name, right at this moment, in the middle of the yard under a clear blue sky. It was very quiet. Uram entered the house in his school uniform, announcing his return. He noticed a pair of shoes he had never seen before and wondered if the witch brought a friend home. Yurin, holding a tray of food, welcomed him back and mentioned his friend had just dropped by. Uram asked in surprise what friend she meant. Yurin smiled brightly, saying she never expected her son to have such a famous friend. He stuttered, asking her to wait and not say it was who he thought it was. Sun Guwang excitedly stood up, addressing him as cult leader and saying he had returned. Yuna laughed loudly, saying her brother was home. Yurin looked up in surprise at the term cult leader. Uram's face looked a bit displeased. He asked Sun Guwang why she was here. Yurin questioned the name. Sun Gu Wang. He started speaking sternly, asking if she had already greeted the Ice Witch. Sun Gu Wang excitedly confirmed, saying it was an extremely warm greeting. Yuna chimed in, saying it was literally hot. Yuri silently sighed. She thought that, even in her dreams, she never expected the Ice Witch to reincarnate as the cult leader's older sister. But perhaps there was no need to bring past life grudges into the present. She admitted she disliked her, but if she had not saved Yuna back then, they would have faced a great disaster. That protective divine art was definitely the technique of the 4 great guardians under the heavenly demon. There were already too many troublesome people around. If she joined their side, it would definitely be useful. Sun Guwang looked very happy at this moment, even though she seemed a bit silly. She hugged him tightly, saying he also had a cute younger sister and a gentle, beautiful mother. Yurin smiled, commenting on how beautiful and polite she was. Sun Guwang continued, saying she never expected the cult leader, who used to be an orphan, to now have such a warm family. Urim coldly replied that if she kept talking like that, his mother would misunderstand. Suddenly she sobbed, calling it great news that he had a mother. Urim sighed, finding it tiring. Yurin looked at Yuri in surprise, asking if Urim used to be an orphan and what the girl was talking about. Yuri slowly closed her book and explained that it was just a recent role-playing trend on social media, so explaining it would be useless. Uram angrily dragged Sun Guwang away, while she thanked his mother for raising the cult leader so well. He angrily yelled at her to shut up. Yurin smiled and waved, telling her to make herself at home. Now, in Uram's room, after knocking before entering, he started speaking. He asked why she suddenly appeared. Yuri was surprised and asked why he was asking her, since she was his guest. Sun Guwang casually shared surprising news, saying she had just recruited a director of Hunter Horn. Urim widened his eyes in shock, asking how she recruited him. She explained that there was a fan with extraordinary internal energy, so she kept an eye on him. She met him in person to test his skills and, surprisingly, he was a director of Hunter Horn. Yuri raised her hand to interrupt, saying there was a chance the fan was lying and she wanted to meet him. Sun Guwang snapped her fingers and said she knew the cult leader would want to meet him. So she brought him here. The expensive black car was still parked outside. She suggested they go out to the car to meet him right away. Kim Moo-jin, dressed elegantly, spoke in a deep voice. He introduced himself as Kim Moo-jin, a director of Hunter Horn. He agreed to meet because Miss Soyeon requested it, but asked why they were interested in Hunter Horn. Yuri coldly stated they planned to destroy Hunter Horn and needed information. Kim Moo-jin leaned forward, a bit confused, and told them they could not do that, as Hunter Horn had at least 30 high-ranking masters. Sun Guwang angrily slammed the table, calling him rude. She asked if he knew who these two were, introducing them as the heavenly demon who once united the world in his past life, and the current incarnation of the Ice Witch, the strongest in the demon realm. Kim Moo-jin became somewhat fearful and awkwardly muttered about the heavenly demon and the Ice Witch. He said he never expected to meet the two legends he had only heard of through rumors. He revealed that in his past life, he was a Shaolin monk. In a chaotic world, he lived an ascetic life, practicing every day. Now, Kim Moo-jin's life was filled with luxury. So, he made a decision. With a determined face, he stated that, in this life, he would enjoy it to the fullest. Yuri thought to herself that he seemed a bit foolish, but at least, he did not dare to lie. Urim was a bit suspicious, asking if this guy was really a director. Kim Moo-jin continued, saying because of this, Hunter Horn was also a thorn in his side. They not only extorted a tycoon like him for a massive amount of money, but also bossed him around. He said if they were truly the heavenly demon and the Ice Witch, destroying Hunter Horn would definitely be within their grasp. He promised that, if they destroyed Hunter Horn, he would side with them. Yuri confidently replied that it was good, and asked him to first tell them all the information he knew about Hunter Horn. He began his explanation. Hunter Horn was an organization of reincarnators that had built and expanded by swallowing up organized crime syndicates in South Korea. On the surface, they disguised themselves as a normal corporation. But their true goal was to take over the entire country. They were expanding into fields like commerce and construction, using massive capital to pull political strings and thereby expand their power. They did not hesitate to commit illegal acts like murder, kidnapping, and extortion. Their headquarters was the OO General Trading Company. To root them out, they had to infiltrate that place. Uram smiled confidently, concluding they were all just trash, and suggested charging straight in. Yuri crossed her arms and interrupted, telling him to wait. His face frowned as he asked what the obstacle was now. She continued, explaining that if they acted impulsively, the enemies would manage to escape amidst the chaos. They had to act very secretly so as not to be discovered. Kim Moo-jin agreed, adding that most of the company's employees were civilians, and they had to avoid involving them. He revealed that an upcoming regular board meeting strictly for regressors would be held, and all the high-ranking leaders and the final boss would definitely attend. That was the time to strike. Yuri coldly agreed, saying they would wipe them out then so they would never have the chance to stalk her again. A few days later, on a clear morning at the OO General Trading Company, Uram smiled and asked if this was their lair. Yuri stood up straight confidently, stating they would wipe out everything so no threat would ever dare to approach her again. Uram casually asked if they should wipe them out right now since they were here. Sparks of electricity emitted from Yuri's eyes as she told him to wait, saying they first had to deal with the security camera system. The cameras were surrounded by electric currents and destroyed, Yuri continued, saying if they wanted to take them down in one swift strike, they had to approach cautiously and not act impulsively. Right at this moment, they were standing in front of the gate. Yuri slowly answered her phone. Yurin apologized and asked where she was. She said she had an urgent matter to attend to outside and asked if Yuri was near the house to watch Yuna for a bit. Just for about an hour. Yuri replied that she understood and would come right away. She sighed, honestly thinking her mother was being too overprotective since Yuna was older now. She glanced at Uram, told him to shut up, and ordered him to sit still and wait for her. He nodded, telling her to go and saying he was fine. Yuri's voice was strict, saying she would only believe it when she saw it, and warning him not to cause trouble and just sit still. In the blink of an eye, Yuri vanished from Uram's sight. He leisurely strolled around, looking in all directions. He put his hands in his pockets to grab his hat, feeling too antsy to bear it. Uram put his hat on, thinking he could handle this fine by himself. Two security guards were chatting, praising each other for working hard even on the weekend. They planned to go grab a drink after the executive weekly meeting ended. Uram crouched down, using all his internal energy. He suddenly leaped high into the air with incredible speed. Hovering in the air, he looked at the large building in front of him. He quickly flew up to the rooftop. Uram started running forward at top speed. He silently and slowly hid next to a door, slowly opening it. Good. No one had discovered him yet. Uram looked down the stairs and decided to go down. He moved slowly and quietly down the empty hallway, when suddenly his eyes stopped. He wondered why a door was open and if it was a security room. He debated whether to check it out. As expected, his instincts were right. Now he had found the perfect observation point to see all of them at once. He checked the screens based on Kim Moo-jin's information, looking for their meeting room in the 18th floor hall. The monitors showed various locations in the building. He kept searching until the screen stopped on a meeting room filled with countless men in black suits. He found them. Suddenly, two security guards walked in. They told the student he could not enter without permission, noting all entrances were locked down today and asking how he sneaked in. They noted his outfit was suspicious and ordered him to come over. Uram gritted his teeth, realizing he was exposed. He thought if he let them escape, the Ice Witch would nag him to death. He charged forward, deciding to take the guard down first. He started with a powerful punch, telling him to lie still for a while. Uram's face darkened as he turned to look at the remaining guard. He readied his fist to lunge. The guard asked who he was, panicked, pressed the red button, and yelled at him to stay away. Uram casually looked up at the ceiling, finding it unbelievable. The alarm bell started ringing loudly in the room. Everyone began to panic and cause a commotion. Han questioned why the emergency alarm was going off and what was happening, asking if a rat had slipped in. A subordinate panicked, saying he would investigate immediately. Han's face darkened as he stated he had strictly ordered them to be vigilant with security. He demanded that, if there was an intruder, they must capture him alive and bring him before him immediately. Meanwhile, Uram was running down the hallway with all his might. He thought to himself that he had to reach the hall before they escaped. Suddenly, Violet appeared in front of Uram and shouted that she found him. Kunda casually pointed, saying he would handle the kid while she checked for any other hidden intruders and called for backup just in case. Violet nodded in agreement. Kunda smiled and added that he thought they would not need backup anyway. Suddenly, Uram unexpectedly charged forward, telling the kid to kneel. Without hesitation, he kicked Manager Kunda straight in the face. Kunda flew backward. More people appeared to attack Uram, shouting to catch the brat and asking if he knew where he was standing. He quickly took a fighting stance. Violet hurriedly summoned her power, saying backup was on the way and she would support him. In the blink of an eye, she froze, her eyes wide open. Uram used all his strength to blast both of them away. His face was full of confidence as he said it would be much easier to deal with them if they did not run. Uram lightly nudged Kunda with his foot to check on him. A phone pressed against his ear was still ringing. He gently answered, asking the ice witch what was up. Yuri, who was playing with Yuna, asked if he was sitting still as she instructed. Uram awkwardly replied, of course, saying it was obvious he was sitting still. He asked if she was coming back soon, complaining his neck was about to break from waiting. She felt suspicious, noting his voice sounded shady, and asked if he had gone in alone again. Uram slowly looked around and blamed it on the connection, saying her phone was ancient. His eyes settled on the sign above the room door. He kept saying he understood while keeping a hand in his pocket. He promised to sit still and without hesitation. Kicked the door hard. He told her to stop nagging and go play with Yuna. Inside the room were many people. Yuri paused, thinking she just heard the sound of a door being kicked open. Sumo spoke sternly, asking what that was and if he was the rat that slipped in. Yuri was surprised by the voice, asking if he actually went inside despite her instructions. Uram coldly said he was busy meeting some people and would call her back later. Yuri hurriedly yelled his name, but he hung up. Han was still sitting there staring at him. Uram asked the guy sitting in the back if he was the leader. Gordon stepped forward, saying that was enough, and asking if Uram had something to say to him. Uram casually asked if he forgot the time he got beaten to a pulp by Sun Guwang. Gordon's eyes sharpened as he replied that this time he would teach him a proper lesson, claiming his previous loss was just due to carelessness. He vowed to make Uram regret barging into their lair so arrogantly. Uram started cracking his knuckles, saying Gordon was the fearless one for daring to provoke him. Han suddenly interrupted, guaranteeing Uram would never dare to loiter around him again. He slowly stepped forward, calling Gordon rude. Han maintained a calm and composed demeanor as he stood opposite Uram. Gordon respectfully called him boss, his face serious. Han apologized for his subordinate's mistake. Uram coldly replied, asking if, as the leader, he should not know better than anyone that this could not be resolved with an apology. Violet hurriedly ran in. She and Kunda quickly bowed to the boss, apologizing and saying it was their fault for letting him escape. Han ordered them to raise their heads, saying he would not punish them because Uram was a prominent figure that trash like them could not deal with right away. Han smiled, noting Uram did not seem like an easy opponent. He realized Uram was the one who defeated J. Hunter Horns No. 2. Although it was normal for the weak to lose to the strong, JTE was not the type to be easily defeated by just anyone. Feeling his aura, Han understood and asked what his title was in his past life. Uram slowly replied that he had no name to give to someone weaker than himself. Han said nothing, just smiled and stared at him. He placed a hand on his chest and continued, saying, Jay was his comrade in his past life. He was a renowned spiritualist who was once strong enough to fight a dragon alone. Uram thought to himself that the witch had defeated him, and asked so what, and if he wanted revenge. Han told him not to be hasty and to let him finish. He asked if Uram ever wondered why reincarnators like them were reborn on Earth, especially those who were hailed as the strongest in their past lives. He noted a few mixed breeds had also slipped in. Han shared his theory that this Earth was a stage to select a god. The one who defeated all other reincarnators and emerged as the final victor would become the lord of all space and time. He slowly reached out his hand to Uram, asking him to join him. He promised that, on the day he became a god, he would let Uram stand beside him, as he deserved that position. He expressed regret that Jay lost his chance, attributing it to his limits. But Uram was different. He definitely had the qualifications. Uram's body began to tremble as he repeated the phrase about qualifications to stand beside him. Suddenly, his eyes turned sharp as he stated he had lived a very long time in his past life, and no self-proclaimed god was ever normal. They were just like Han, and he did not submit to those weaker than himself. Han closed his eyes, understanding that words alone were not enough. He said that if one wanted talent, they had to put in the effort. Uram gathered momentum, promising to show him personally. His eyes blazed, and his fists clenched tightly. He asked for the reason why he should stand beside Han, and why Han was the one destined to become a god. At this moment, the two powerful forces collided. Suddenly, Uram's body froze, and his eyes showed slight surprise. Han smiled quite confidently, with streams of fire flowing across his body. Uram retreated in panic at the sight. His hand began to bleed. Han mockingly asked if he should apologize. Han was surprised by how quickly Uram changed his tune when Uram said he would accept the apology, provided Han kneeled first. Uram unexpectedly changed his expression to a sinister smile. His face was full of confidence. He stated he thought the king of grunts was still just a grunt, but it seemed he was wrong. He noted this would be interesting. Uram dashed forward at high speed. He suddenly counterattacked by striking Han's chest. He unleashed a flurry of uncontrolled punches on him. Han did not yield and was determined to fight back. Han's palms clenched tightly. He asked if Uram knew struggling was useless. Uram's eyes narrowed sharply as he noted Han was full of openings. In a flash, his fist landed directly on Han's face. Han lost his balance and stumbled backward. Flashes of fiery power surrounding him. Han gritted his teeth, realizing Shram's energy was stronger than before, and decided he should end this before things got complicated. He clenched his fist, covered in power, but Uram was a step faster, quickly ducking low. His muscular arms struck Han's face, noting he was too slow. Everyone was watching their boss get beaten to a pulp. They were all shocked and astonished, crying out for their boss. A fiery red power engulfed Uram's entire body. He announced the heavenly demon divine art and offered to teach Han how to strike properly. Blood continuously spewed from Han's mouth. He paused, recognizing the martial power. Suddenly, a giant dragon appeared behind Uram. The first form. He quickly dashed forward and struck Han's face. Han wondered if the heavenly demon had reincarnated. With just one strike, Han was sent flying backward, his body trembling uncontrollably. Han realized he had been dreaming an illusion, never expecting the beast challenging him to be the heavenly demon. Among his subordinates, there were a few who owed their lives to the heavenly demon in their past lives. He knew he had to destroy him before they discovered he was the heavenly demon's reincarnation. He ordered everyone to attack together. He yelled, asking if his order was a joke, and told them not to ask questions and just kill him quickly. Despite his battered state, having taken the hit, Han knew the heavenly demon had not yet recovered his full strength. If it were his complete original form, Han knew he would be no match. Everyone rushed forward frantically following the boss's order to take him down. Han thought this was the last chance to capture the heavenly demon alive, and that he must be killed at all costs. Urim quickly took a fighting stance. Noting Han was quick to send his subordinates to their deaths right after being pushed back, calling it pathetic. Suddenly, Urim coughed up blood. Someone was attacking from behind. The internal injuries from his fight with the Grim Reaper were still affecting him. A large, spiked mace struck Urim's leg, and blood slowly trickled from the corner of his eye. This was extremely dangerous. Yuri was frowning. She wondered when her mother would return. She knew Urim had definitely done something. And if anything happened, she could not just ignore it and stay home. Yuri looked at her glowing ring and muttered that the blood ring was glowing, meaning he really went in there alone. She apologized to her mother in her head, knowing she had no time to hesitate. Yuri softly called Yuna, apologizing that she had to leave. Before she could finish, Yurin walked in, announcing she was back. Yuri greeted her. Yurin smiled gently, apologizing for being a bit late because she stopped to buy cake for everyone. Yuna was thrilled hearing this. Yurin said she would serve the cake with some drinks right away. But Yuri hurriedly replied that she had a friend waiting, so she would eat later, thanking her mother. Watching her leave in a hurry, Yurin told her to be careful, wishing she had known so she would not have come back so late. Meanwhile, Urim was fighting. He thought about how he was once the heavenly demon who united the martial arts world. After completing his reincarnation process, his power had surged to the point where most attacks were ineffective. He realized the spiked mace hit his leg, probably because he had carelessly let his guard down, being far away from his past life domain. Urim threw a punch at an opponent, deciding he needed to escape this situation first. Seeing 3 or 4 guys surrounding him, he calculated that he needed to buy time for his internal energy to recover so he could execute the heavenly demon divine art. One guy charged to attack, yelling for him to die. Urim agilely dodged. He complained that they did not give him a second to rest. After he counterattacked, the other 2 seized the opportunity to rush in. They noted he was about to run out of energy and urged each other to keep attacking and block his escape routes. Urim fought while cursing them as lowly scum. He took a stance, stating that even though his body had not fully recovered, he punched one guy and told them that trash like them were not qualified to be his opponents. Urim raised his leg, looking at them tensely, noting there were too many of them. He then punched another guy, thinking he really should have listened to the witch. After taking down those 2, Urim looked at the hunter horn leader standing in front of him and challenged him to a death match if he was the leader. Han snapped back, saying he could see through Urim's petty schemes. Seeing Urim panting, Han ordered them to continue attacking, noting he was exhausted. 3-foot soldiers charged, the leader telling them to finish him off in one strike. Urim smiled defiantly, accepting the challenge to see who would be the last one standing. Just as the 3 attacked, Yuri arrived and erected an ice wall. She scolded Urim, reminding him she told him to wait and asking if her words carried no weight anymore. He stammered, making an excuse that it was due to unavoidable circumstances. With a wave of her hand, Yuri smashed them to pieces. She told him if he was going to fight, he should do it properly. Asking if he was bored enough to struggle with this level of trash, Urim defended himself, saying if it were not for his internal injuries, he could have taken them all down with one punch. She let out a sigh, acknowledging it, but said they should finish them off first before figuring out the rest. She told him to use his power through the absorption technique to recover some internal energy. Urim focused his power into his hands, saying he intended to do that even without her. But, thanks to that, his internal energy had recovered a bit. Yuri summoned a magic circle, joining forces with him to fight them. Everyone was beaten to a pulp, leaving only the hunter horn leader rooted to the spot. Urim reminded the so-called leader that he was the only one left. Han was furious, thinking that if that bitch had not suddenly appeared, they would have defeated the heavenly demon. He then unleashed his ultimate technique. He cursed the wretched bugs for ruining his grand plan. Watching him prepare his move, Urim muttered, realizing Han was going berserk. and unleashing the god-destroying fire. Han shouted that since it had come to this, he would not die alone. Urim laughed mockingly, calling it a suicide technique and asking if Han thought he would let him have his way. Then he unleashed the heavenly demon divine art, the third form, dragon vein palm. Han screamed in agony. His body slammed into the ground, cracking the wall. She told Urim to finish him off, but he seemed unwilling to do so. He questioned finishing him. Yuri spoke seriously, noting they knew where they lived. Urim remained calm, acknowledging her point. He pulled the hunter horn leader up by the back of his neck and said he would destroy his meridians, rendering him permanently unable to struggle. He stated Han was now just a weak, ordinary mortal and would no longer have the capacity to plot revenge. Han then vomited a mouthful of blood. The scene shifted to the school campus, and so, Hunter Horn was wiped out. Urim walked while taking in the fresh air. The threat gone. The classroom was bustling and noisy, and they had returned to their peaceful daily lives. He chatted with Donggu, saying he told him he really met Sun Guang. Donggu looked at the phone Urim was holding, asking if it was really true. Yuri was writing in her notebook, thinking that since Hunter Horn had been dealt with, things would be peaceful for a while. Urim told Donggu that chatting comfortably like this made him realize how important a peaceful life was. Donggu muttered about Urim's weird way of speaking. Urim then asked Donggu why he was suddenly going to Japan. Donggu explained helplessly, asking if Urim had listened to anything he said. He said he was not going alone. The entire grade was going to Japan for the school trip. Urim smiled with interest, remembering the school trip. He thought this would be his first time going overseas in this life, and was looking forward to it. At Incheon Airport, the flight attendant's voice announced they would do their best to provide a comfortable flight. They arrived in Osaka, Japan. The three of them happily walked together. Yuri looked around, finding it more fun than she expected. Urim asked where they should go next. Donggu suggested a famous photo spot nearby. The three headed there. Donggu took a picture for Urim and Yuri, counting 1, 2. Then they stopped by a food stall. Urim ordered 2 servings of takoyaki in Japanese. Donggu praised him for speaking Japanese so well, but he did not know Urim was actually thinking how amazing the witch's translation charm was. Donggu looked at the map and said to wait a moment while he went to the restroom. Yuri pointed the way for him, telling him to turn right at the corner, go straight to the intersection, and turn left. He told Yuri he would catch up quickly and asked her to go to the meeting point first. The sky was clear and sunny. At a temple, a car slowly approached. A robust man stepped out. The old monk welcomed the benefactor, saying they had been waiting for him and invited him inside. The two went in. The man handed over a piece of paper containing information about the targets for this mission. He ordered them to eliminate the targets discreetly. Once the mission was complete, they would go see the councilman again. Elsewhere, someone was sitting while a man in black knelt respectfully before him. He acknowledged the man's arrival. Holding a teacup, he said he assumed the man understood the mission and told him to execute it perfectly. The man in black listened attentively, shouted his acknowledgement, and darted off. Meanwhile, Urim was grumbling about his bad luck. He kept walking, unable to believe he got lost. He wondered where he was. Suddenly he noticed something, sensing a terrifying murderous aura radiating from somewhere nearby. Urim secretly observed, wondering if it was coming from a specific direction, and headed that way. He quietly thought to himself that the aura here was completely different. He got serious, knowing he needed to check it out immediately. Meanwhile, the man in black was completing his killing mission. On the floor lay a heavily bleeding man. The assassin casually noted the target was eliminated and that he needed to erase his tracks and disappear. As he was calculating his next move, Urim unexpectedly burst in. Stepping inside, Urim was shocked, asking what this was. He looked at the assassin and asked if he was also a reincarnator. The scene shifted back to the teacher in charge, calling out to the students to gather around as they were preparing to leave. Donggu stood in line. Looking around, Yuri assured him Uram would come on his own, asking if he thought something happened. Seeing Donggu had not boarded the bus, the teacher told him to get on quickly. Donggu complied. Back to Uram. The tension was high. The assassin interrogated him, asking who he was and who sent him. Uram acted harmless, replying he was just a kind passerby. He asked if the guy was an assassin and why he killed the man over there. The assassin lunged forward, thrusting his sword at Uram, stating he did not care. Witnesses had to be eliminated. Uram raised his voice, noting the guy attacked him without a word, meaning there was no room for negotiation. He declared he would force him to speak. Then, Uram punched him hard. The assassin was sent flying into the wall, the heavy impact causing a lot of dust and debris to fall. Uram asked how it was, and if he wanted to talk now. The assassin struggled to get up, yelled for Uram to die, and threw shurikens. Uram's eyes widened in surprise. He quickly dodged all the shurikens. The assassin impatiently stated he had no time to play with a kid. Uram was not to be outdone, saying such obvious attacks would never hit him, and suggesting the guy needed a longer beating. The assassin was also surprised by Uram's agility. He jumped up and fled through the window. Uram smiled confidently, noting the guy decided to run because he could not win. Acknowledging he, at least, knew he would lose. Uram jumped up as well, thinking this game might be interesting. He promised to chase him to the ends of the earth and immediately darted after him. The assassin informed his allies that Uram was hot on his trail and he would lure him to the nearest base, telling them to prepare the assassins. After chasing for a while, Uram stopped, noting the guy was faster than he thought. His movement techniques were impressive. Uram assessed the situation, deciding to temporarily follow the direction he disappeared into. As he walked, Uram thought of what excuse to give the teacher when he returned, hoping the witch had covered for him. Approaching the house in front of him, he secretly observed. He found the place unusually quiet. Then, Uram noticed something. Asking what it was, he looked up and called them out, telling them to stop hiding, as there were many assassins concealed on the roof, stating hiding was useless against him. A guy walked out from inside, probing Uram, asking if he dared to barge in here alone. He said he had never seen Uram before and asked which group he belonged to. Uram said disdainfully that if he named his group, they would all run away. So, he would pass. The guy ordered his subordinates, assuming Uram was just a clueless rookie coming to cause trouble, and told them to take him down. Many sniper scopes from the roof aimed at where Uram was standing. Uram challenged them, asking if they wanted to talk with their fists, and told them to come at him. Dozens of assassins attacked him, wearing masks and wielding swords as they charged at Uram. He utilized his power, anticipating this would be fun. At the school, Donggu was anxious, wondering where Uram went since he was still nowhere to be seen. Yuri was deep in thought, thinking causing a little trouble was fine. But she was exhausted. She wondered what he was doing and why he was not answering his phone. At this moment, the ring on her hand glowed, and she hurried out. Donggu saw her and asked what she was doing. He asked if Uram was arriving soon. Yuri answered without looking back, saying he was nearby and she was going to find him. She slammed the door shut. Yuri looked at the ring thoughtfully, wondering what had happened now, as she just wanted everything to be peaceful. Meanwhile, Uram was fiercely fighting them. A chained kunai flew toward him, wrapping tightly around one of his arms. Two assassins took the opportunity to shout and charge at him. Seizing the moment, the leader smirked disdainfully, praising his impressive spirit but declaring this was the end. The chained kunai tightened, drawing blood. The two assassins prepared to strike, but they were suddenly surprised when Uram used the very same chained kunai to knock them down. The leader was shocked that Uram easily broke out of the assassins' encirclement. He ordered them not to stop and to keep attacking. Uram lost his patience, stating the guy was not worth wasting more time on and deciding to end it in one move. He pivoted his foot, executing the second form, whirlwind kick, creating a tornado with his kick. The leader froze, recognizing the technique as impossible. The internal energy and power were reduced, but, just looking at the movement, there was no mistaking it. He realized Uram had reincarnated. The heavenly demon. Uram smiled and asked if he just planned to stand there and be a spectator. The guy refused to be outdone, saying of course not. The leader charged forward, addressing the heavenly demon and saying he wanted to see what peak he had reached in this life. Uram utilized his power, noting the guy's tone suggested they had met before. Unfortunately, Uram said disdainfully that too many people had fallen by his hands, so he could not remember every single one. The guy did not wait, flying forward and radiating intense murderous intent, saying Uram's arrogance had not changed. He told Uram he now had to prove that confidence. Now, Yuri had also arrived. She was still guessing, noting this was a temple and wondering why she was here. Yuri frustratedly walked up the steps, demanding to know where Uram was, and vowing he was dead meat if she found him. Standing in front of the temple doors, she pondered if the space was distorted, which would explain why she could not teleport directly to him. Whatever happened, she was sure he was trapped here. Yuri suddenly noticed a huge, muscular guy behind her. He stuttered, telling her mortals were not allowed to enter. He raised his fist, declaring intruders must be executed. Yuri cursed inwardly, realizing she had been too careless. She took a heavy punch from him and was sent flying far away. But fortunately, Yuri managed to use her powers in time. Holding her injured arm, she scolded him, calling him a bastard for daring to sneak attack her. Yuri focused her power in her hands, stating the price for touching her was his life. She unleashed an ice flower, and shards fell around. Yuri grew furious, yelling that since he dared to ruin her trip, she would not let him off easily. She also cursed Uram. The giant was frozen, but cracks appeared on the ice block. She was surprised by the sound, realizing it was impossible. She wondered if they were trying to break her ice magic to escape. The sound of shattering ice echoed, and the giant broke free. He shouted to destroy the intruder. Yuri refocused her power, noting he was more resilient than she thought. The giant acted aggressively. She chanted a spell, calling upon the magic-infused ice shards to bind her enemy. Shards of ice rushed toward him. Yuri ordered him to stand still and not move. She twisted her hand, declaring she would finish him off cleanly this time. Yuri cast Ice Impact, and numerous ice shards flew out. The giant kept babbling about the intruder. The Ice Impact hit him, and her face grew serious. That strike should have finished the job, but it turned out the giant remained intact despite taking the hit, his eyes radiating murderous intent. Yuri was surprised that he took the hit directly and remained unfazed. The giant gritted his teeth, stuttering that all intruders must die. He charged forward, tearing through the air. She cursed again, calling him an idiot but admitting his body was indeed tough. He yelled and slammed his hands hard where Yuri stood, but she managed to dodge, mocking him that such crude attacks would not work anymore. The giant looked up, muttering that the intruder knew how to fly and must be destroyed. He jumped up, continuously mumbling that intruders must be eliminated. Yuri launched an ice spear, disgustedly ordering him to shut up and stop babbling. Yuri attacked, telling him to die. The giant used his body to block every strike. She nonchalantly watched to see how long he could hold out. He roared, declaring he would kill the intruder, and dashed rapidly toward Yuri. Frustrated, she scolded him, calling him as stubborn as a leech for enduring this attack. She admitted she was truly curious about his body now. The giant did not say much, just repeated his goal to take down the intruder and raised his fist. He punched down. Yuri used a freezing technique. When her hand touched him, the giant was trapped in a block of ice. He grimaced. Yuri acknowledged that he indeed had a tough body, but that alone could not withstand the freezing cold from the inside. She explained that the shattered ice fragments he smashed, she crushed into even smaller pieces and forced into his body. The giant writhed in pain as she continued her explanation. That was how she started freezing him from the inside out. She declared this was the perfect magic for thick-skinned people like him. Yuri held her shoulder and let out a sigh, realizing she had to go look for her little brother again. This time, she vowed she really would not spare him. Meanwhile, Urim was engaged in a fierce battle. The leader, having been struck by Urim, stared intently at him. He noted Urim's skills had not rusted. Urim gathered his energy as he spoke, attributing it to his crazy daily training. Urim mocked him, saying the power he had shown so far could not even scratch him. The leader charged again. He announced that from now on, he would use his full power and told Urim to try and block it. Urim and the leader engaged in close combat. The leader swung his sword at Urim. Urim quickly dodged and asked if this was really all he had. The leader was shocked. Urim attacked the leader and commented that it was truly disappointing. The guy hurriedly dodged. The leader provoked Urim, telling him to save those words until he actually landed a hit. But as soon as he finished speaking, he was struck, caught off guard by Urim's attack. The leader had to take a defensive stance to maintain his balance and avoid falling flat on his face. Urim smirked, saying it was a pity, as a direct hit would have ended him in one strike. A few drops of blood dripped onto the courtyard floor. The leader was bitter, wondering what happened, as he thought he had dodged that attack. He realized that if he had noticed a moment later, he might have taken a fatal blow from him. He chuckled softly, confirming this really was the heavenly demon. He admitted that only at this level could he acknowledge him as the person he once respected. The leader took calculated steps, and Urim stared at him, recognizing his footwork as he created a circle of clones. Looking at the technique, Urim recognized the blood shadow step. The leader threw a shuriken, hitting Urim. Urim was not rushed, he just laughed, saying it really brought back distant memories. Urim broke the shuriken with one hand. He stood there, finally recognizing him. He said no wonder the attacks felt so familiar. Urim caught the guy's arm, gripping it tightly so the leader could not attack. The guy used his other arm to strike down. Urim remained calm and unafraid, noting that even with one arm locked, he still attacked with the other. He recognized it as a pure assassin's strike, with no thought of defense, an offensive tactic aimed solely at destroying the opponent. He remarked that the bastard was still as arrogant as ever. Urim smiled,